Maya sat at her desk in the corner of the classroom, her small hands gripping her pencil as she stared at the math problem on the chalkboard. It was a riddle that had stumped even the most brilliant minds in the world, a complex equation that had been circulating in academic circles for months. Professors at universities around the country had tried to solve it, but no one had succeeded. Maya, however, was different. At just 7 years old, she didn't see the world in the same way as the grown-ups did. Her mind worked differently, and today, that difference was about to change everything. The classroom was quiet, except for the scratch of pencils on paper. Mrs. Hayes, her teacher, was walking around, checking on the students as they worked on their assignments. Maya, however, was deep in concentration, her brow furrowed as she scribbled down a series of numbers and symbols on her paper. "Is this right?" Maya whispered to herself, her voice barely audible. She had been trying to solve this particular problem for weeks, ever since she first saw it on the news. The equation had become an obsession for her, something that tugged at her curiosity and wouldn't let go. For the longest time, she didn't even know what it was. She had simply seen the equation on TV, where a group of university professors were discussing it. They were struggling to solve it, but Maya could see something they couldn't. It was like a puzzle piece clicking into place in her mind. Her pencil moved swiftly across the paper, each stroke of her hand bringing her closer to the answer. She paused for a moment, scanning her work. It didn't feel like a guess, it felt like the truth. Maya's heart raced as she looked at the series of numbers and symbols before her. Could it be? Could she have really solved it? Her fingers hovered over the paper for a moment, uncertain whether to write the final number or not. She took a deep breath, looked at the clock, and then scribbled down the last digit. Her equation was complete. Done, she whispered to herself, a triumphant smile spreading across her face. But as the bell rang to signal the end of class, Maya's victory felt hollow. No one had seen what she had done. No one would believe her, especially not in a room full of adults. The next day at school, Maya couldn't contain her excitement. She rushed to her teacher, Mrs. Hayes, eager to share her discovery. "Mrs. Hayes," Maya said, breathless. "I solved the equation. The one that all the professors have been trying to figure out." Mrs. Hayes looked up from her desk, raising an eyebrow. "What equation are you talking about, Maya?" "The one on the news." "The one no one could solve," Maya said, her voice filled with enthusiasm. "I solved it. I really did." Mrs. Hayes smiled kindly but skeptically. "Maya, that's very impressive, but those are university-level problems. Are you sure you're not just imagining things?" "I'm not imagining it. I really did it," Maya insisted, pulling the crumpled piece of paper from her backpack and placing it on Mrs. Hayes's desk. Mrs. Hayes glanced at the paper for a moment, her smile fading into a look of confusion. "Maya, this is a very complex equation. I don't think it's something a 7-year-old should be working on. Are you sure you understand what you're doing?" Maya's heart sank. She had been so sure. She had thought Mrs. Hayes would be proud, maybe even amazed, but instead, her teacher just seemed confused. "I understand it, Mrs. Hayes," Maya said, trying to explain. "I saw the problem on TV, and I just knew how to solve it. It's really not that hard once you know what you're doing. Please, look at it again." Mrs. Hayes hesitated for a moment, clearly unsure how to respond. She picked up the paper and examined it more closely. After a few seconds, she sighed, clearly not convinced. "Maya, this isn't something you should be worrying about. Maybe it's just a mistake or a lucky guess. I suggest you focus on your regular assignments for now." Maya's face fell. "But I solved it. I really did." "I'm sure you did your best," Mrs. Hayes said with a reassuring smile, "but this is beyond you right now. Maybe you can try something else." Maya sat back down at her desk, her excitement turning into frustration. How could no one believe her? How could no one see what she had done? She was just a kid, but that didn't mean she wasn't capable of doing great things. The rest of the class passed in a blur as Maya tried to push the equation out of her mind. But it was impossible. It kept coming back to her, nagging at her, reminding her that she had solved it. As the bell rang for dismissal, Maya stood up slowly, gathering her things. She could feel the weight of the paper with the equation pressing against her backpack. It felt like a secret, a discovery that no one else understood. But there was one person she knew might, someone who might believe her. She grabbed her backpack and headed out the door, determined to take a step she hadn't dared before. At home, Maya sat down at the kitchen table, her eyes focused on the paper with the equation. Her mom, Janice, was in the next room, making dinner, and Maya could hear the sound of pots and pans clanging. "Mama," Maya said, her voice barely above a whisper. Janice walked over and sat next to her. "What's up, sweetie?" "Mama, I solved the math problem," Maya said, her voice tinged with both excitement and uncertainty. Janice raised an eyebrow. "What math problem?" "The one on TV. The one the professors can't solve," Maya said, holding up the piece of paper. "I did it. I really did it." Janice smiled, her face lighting up with pride. "That's amazing, baby. You're so smart. I'm proud of you." "But, they don't believe me, Mama," Maya said, her eyes downcast. "Mrs. Hayes doesn't believe me. No one believes me." Janice's smile faded slightly as she took Maya's hand. "Sweetheart, I believe you. You're smart, and you're capable. Sometimes, people just don't understand things the way you do. But that doesn't mean you're wrong. You just have to keep going, okay?" Maya nodded, her eyes filling with tears. She didn't know what to do. She had solved the problem, but it felt like the whole world was telling her she was wrong. "Don't let anyone tell you what you can or can't do," Janice said gently. "You're special, Maya. And I know you're capable of great things." Maya looked at her mom, her heart swelling with pride. If anyone could believe in her, it was her mom. Maybe that was all she needed, one person who understood, one person who knew she was telling the truth. The next day, as Maya sat in class, she made a decision. She wasn't going to let anyone tell her she couldn't do something just because she was a kid. She was going to keep going, no matter what. And maybe, just maybe, one day, she would find someone who would believe in her discovery. She wasn't going to stop until she proved them all wrong. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? Maya's heart beat a little faster as she walked into school the next day, her backpack heavier than usual. The paper containing the solution to the equation still sat inside it, folded neatly and tucked away like a hidden treasure. She had thought long and hard about her discovery, and while everyone seemed to doubt her, especially her teacher, Mrs. Hayes, Maya couldn't shake the feeling that she was on the verge of something extraordinary. The world was full of people who didn't believe in things until they saw it with their own eyes. Maya was learning that the hard way. But she was also beginning to understand something that no one had told her before: just because people didn't believe her didn't mean she was wrong. She had solved the equation, and nothing could take that away from her. As she entered her classroom, she could feel the eyes of her classmates on her. She had told a few of them about her discovery the day before, but they hadn't seemed very interested. They were more focused on their own assignments, on what their parents might say, or on what was happening on the playground at recess. But Maya couldn't stop thinking about the equation. It had consumed her thoughts for the past week, and now it felt like her responsibility to share it with someone who could help her make sense of it all. She walked to her desk, the weight of the paper in her backpack pressing against her spine. As she sat down, she glanced at Mrs. Hayes, who was busy writing something on the chalkboard. The moment of confrontation was drawing nearer. "Good morning, class," Mrs. Hayes said, her voice breaking through the hum of the room. Maya didn't respond right away. She was still thinking about what to do next. She needed someone to listen, someone who could understand the magnitude of what she had just figured out. She couldn't go back to her teacher, she had already given up on her. But there was someone else, someone who might believe her. At recess, Maya went to the playground, but she didn't feel like playing. Her classmates were running around, laughing, and shouting, but Maya's mind was elsewhere. She found herself walking toward the chain-link fence at the edge of the schoolyard. She needed to get away from the noise, the doubt, the rejection. And then, as if by instinct, she turned toward the back of the school where the small science lab was located. It wasn't much, just a single room with a few microscopes and some bookshelves. But there was someone there, someone who might help her. Dr. Carter was a guest speaker who had come to the school a few weeks ago. He was a professor at the nearby university, and Maya had listened to him talk about math and science in awe. He was one of the smartest people she had ever met, and something about the way he spoke made her believe that he truly understood the complexity of the world around him. He wasn't like the other grown-ups who dismissed her ideas as childish. Maya made her way to the science lab, her legs moving almost without thinking. When she reached the door, she knocked softly, unsure of what to expect. "Come in," a voice called from the other side. She pushed the door open and stepped inside. Dr. Carter was sitting at a desk, surrounded by stacks of papers and books. He looked up as she entered, his eyes narrowing slightly in surprise. "Well, hello, Maya," he said, his voice warm. "What brings you to the lab today?" Maya hesitated for a moment, trying to find the right words. "Dr. Carter, I solved a math problem. A really hard one. The kind you see on the news, the kind that no one can figure out." Dr. Carter raised an eyebrow, clearly intrigued. "You solved a math problem? That's impressive. What kind of problem are you talking about?" Maya pulled the paper from her backpack and handed it to him. She watched as Dr. Carter took it, his face becoming serious as he looked over the numbers. For a few moments, there was only silence. Maya's heart raced. She didn't know what to expect, but she was terrified that he, too, would dismiss her discovery. Finally, Dr. Carter looked up from the paper, his eyes wide with disbelief. This is the problem," he said, his voice almost a whisper. "This is the one that's been stumping mathematicians for months." Maya nodded, her eyes bright. "I solved it. I really did." Dr. Carter blinked a few times, still processing what he was seeing. "But you're 7. "I know," Maya said, her voice steady. "But I figured it out." For a long moment, Dr. Carter just stood there, staring at the paper, as if trying to understand how it could be possible. Finally, he looked at Maya again, his expression serious. "Maya," he said slowly, "this is extraordinary. You're telling me you solved this, all on your own?" Maya nodded again. "Yes. I don't know how, but I just knew. It was like everything clicked into place." Dr. Carter sat back in his chair, clearly trying to process the magnitude of what Maya was saying. "I've been working on this for months. No one has been able to crack it. And yet, you, a 7-year-old, just did." Maya felt a sense of pride swelling in her chest. Finally, someone believed her. Finally, someone saw what she had done. But even as she basked in the moment, a small part of her worried. What would happen next? Would people take her seriously? Would they dismiss her as a fluke, as a lucky guess? "Maya," Dr. Carter said, snapping her out of her thoughts, "this is incredible. But we need to do something about it. You can't just leave this here, not with the kind of attention this is going to get. We need to get this to the right people." Maya felt a wave of nervousness wash over her. "But, what if they don't believe me?" Dr. Carter smiled kindly. "Believe me, Maya, they'll believe you. This isn't something anyone can ignore." Maya left the lab that afternoon with a sense of purpose she hadn't felt before. She had solved the problem, but now the hard part was about to begin. If Dr. Carter was right, her discovery could change everything. But only if she could convince the world to listen. Only if she could prove that a 7-year-old girl, someone who had been dismissed, overlooked, and underestimated, had the power to change the way people thought about math, about the world, and about what was possible. And so, Maya's journey began, one where she would face doubts, obstacles, and skeptics, but one where she would also find allies, opportunities, and the courage to challenge everything she had ever been told. What started as a secret, hidden in the back of a classroom, was about to become something much bigger. And no one, absolutely no one, could predict where it would lead. Maya's discovery had turned her life upside down in ways she never could have imagined. The next few days felt like a blur, a whirlwind of emotions, uncertainty, and hope. After her meeting with Dr. Carter, she went back to school with a sense of quiet determination. But things were far from normal. As much as she wanted to jump to the next step and have her discovery recognized, the reality of how the world would respond started to settle in. The first test came that very afternoon when Mrs. Hayes called her into the hallway after class. "Maya," Mrs. Hayes began, her voice calm yet firm, "I've been thinking about what you said yesterday, and I think we need to take a more realistic approach." Maya's heart skipped a beat. She had hoped for something more, maybe a moment of validation or encouragement, but instead, Mrs. Hayes looked at her with that familiar, skeptical look. "Maya, this problem is far too complicated for someone your age. I know you're a smart girl, but this is beyond you," Mrs. Hayes said. "I think you're just confused, maybe even overwhelmed by something you saw or heard. It's easy to get caught up in the excitement of it all." Maya's face fell. She had been hoping for support, for her teacher to see what she had accomplished. But Mrs. Hayes was, once again, dismissing her. "I know what I did," Maya said quietly, trying to keep her voice steady. "I solved it. I really did." Mrs. Hayes sighed. "Look, Maya, I want to believe you. But we both know you're just a kid. You can't understand something like this without years of study, years of experience." Maya wanted to argue, to scream that she had done it, that the answer was right there, in front of them. But instead, she took a deep breath and looked Mrs. Hayes in the eye. "I'll prove it," Maya said, her voice firm. "You'll see." The next day, Maya met Dr. Carter at the university. He had arranged for her to meet with one of his colleagues, a renowned mathematician named Professor Bennett, who had been studying the very problem Maya had solved. Maya was nervous as she walked into the large, imposing building. The hallway smelled of old books and polished wood, and the air felt cool and serious, like a place where people didn't have time for nonsense. Dr. Carter greeted her with a reassuring smile. "Don't worry, Maya. Professor Bennett is one of the brightest minds in the field. If anyone will believe you, it's him." Maya nodded, her palms sweaty. She was just a 7-year-old girl, standing in a world full of grown-ups who didn't believe her. What if Professor Bennett was like the others? What if he dismissed her, too? Dr. Carter led her into a large office, where a man with graying hair and glasses was seated behind a cluttered desk, flipping through a stack of papers. He looked up when they entered, his expression curious but guarded. "Maya, this is Professor Bennett," Dr. Carter introduced. "Professor, this is Maya, the young girl I told you about." Professor Bennett stood up, extending a hand to Maya. "Nice to meet you, young lady. Dr. Carter tells me you've solved a problem that's been baffling mathematicians for some time. I must admit, I'm curious to hear about it." Maya's heart raced. She had never been in a room like this before, and she had never had to explain herself to someone so important. She held up the crumpled piece of paper with her solution and handed it to Professor Bennett. He took it slowly, his brow furrowing as he studied the equation. Maya could feel the tension in the room, the weight of his gaze. Was he going to dismiss her? Would he tell her it was a mistake, that she couldn't possibly have solved it? For what felt like an eternity, there was silence. Then, Professor Bennett looked up, his face unreadable. "This is impressive," he said slowly. But it's hard to believe. No one has been able to crack this, and certainly no one as young as you. How did you arrive at this solution? Maya took a deep breath. I don't really know how. I saw the problem on the news, and something just clicked. I started writing down the numbers, and then it all made sense. Professor Bennett didn't say anything for a long moment. He just stared at the paper, deep in thought. Dr. Carter stood beside Maya, his arms crossed, waiting for the verdict. Finally, Professor Bennett spoke, his voice quieter than before. This is extraordinary, Maya. This solution, this approach, is unlike anything I've seen. It's not a mistake. It's real. Maya's chest swelled with pride, but she couldn't let herself get too excited just yet. Professor Bennett was a professional, and while he was acknowledging her solution, he hadn't yet confirmed it as something the world would recognize. I don't understand, Maya said, her voice tentative. Why hasn't anyone else seen it? If it's so obvious, why didn't the professors figure it out? Professor Bennett set the paper down gently on the desk and leaned back in his chair. This problem is incredibly complex. The equations involved are so abstract that most people, even seasoned mathematicians, would have overlooked the simpler approach you took. They're all so focused on finding a complicated answer that they missed the obvious one right in front of them. Maya blinked. So, it wasn't a mistake. No, Maya, Professor Bennett said, his tone now full of admiration. You didn't make a mistake. You solved a problem that has stumped the best minds in the world. And that, young lady, is something very few people can claim. A rush of excitement flooded Maya's veins, but she still had a nagging feeling in the back of her mind. This wasn't enough. She needed more than just recognition from Dr. Carter and Professor Bennett. She needed to show everyone, her teacher, her classmates, the world, that she was right. We need to publish this, Dr. Carter said, his voice filled with urgency. This discovery can't be kept secret. We need to tell the world about Maya's solution. Professor Bennett nodded. Agreed. This isn't just a breakthrough, it's a game changer. Maya's mind raced. She hadn't thought about this part of the process. Could she really stand up in front of everyone and say, I solved it? Could she face the world and prove that a 7-year-old girl had cracked the impossible? I'm ready, Maya said, her voice full of resolve. I want everyone to know. Dr. Carter smiled, proud of her confidence. Good. We'll make sure your discovery is known, Maya. We'll make sure the world hears your name. That night, Maya lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. She had solved the problem. She had proved everyone wrong. But now came the hardest part, getting the world to believe it. She wasn't just a kid who had solved a puzzle. She was a little girl about to change the world, and that thought was both thrilling and terrifying. The battle for recognition was just beginning. And Maya wasn't going to stop until she had earned her place among the great minds of the world. The days following Maya's meeting with Dr. Carter and Professor Bennett felt like an avalanche. Her discovery was no longer just a secret between a curious girl and a couple of mathematicians, it was quickly becoming a storm that no one could ignore. Dr. Carter and Professor Bennett had promised her that they would help her get the word out, but Maya couldn't have anticipated just how quickly things would spiral into something bigger than she ever imagined. It wasn't just about solving an equation anymore. It was about proving herself. Proving that she wasn't just a little girl playing at math, that she was someone who could change the world. Her first real taste of that reality came a few days after the meeting, when Dr. Carter called her at home. Maya, he said, his voice excited, we're going to present your solution at the International Mathematics Conference next week. Maya's stomach flipped. She had heard of the conference before, an annual gathering where the brightest minds from around the globe presented their most groundbreaking discoveries. To be invited was a dream for any scientist or mathematician. But Maya was only 7. Was she even allowed to attend? Wasn't it a place for grown-ups, people with years of experience? Wait, me? Maya asked, almost choking on her disbelief. "Yes, you," Dr. Carter said. "We've arranged for you to present your solution alongside some of the top mathematicians. You're going to be part of history, Maya. This is huge." Maya's mind swirled. Present her solution. In front of hundreds of experts. She had imagined being recognized, but the thought of speaking in front of so many people, many of whom would likely be skeptical, made her heart race. What if they didn't believe her? What if they laughed at her? "Dr. Carter, are you sure about this?" Maya's voice trembled slightly. "What if they don't believe me? What if they think I'm just a kid who got lucky?" Dr. Carter's tone softened, almost comforting. "I know it's a lot to process, Maya, but we've got your back. You've solved something extraordinary. And there are people who will listen. People who will recognize your genius." Still, doubt gnawed at her. The journey from her quiet school desk to the world's biggest stage seemed like an impossible leap. But she had already taken the first steps, and this invitation was a sign that she couldn't turn back now. The days leading up to the conference were filled with preparation. Maya met with Dr. Carter and Professor Bennett several times, refining her presentation, answering their questions, and practicing her speech in front of a small group of professors. Despite their praise, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was about to be thrust into a world where she didn't belong. "Are you ready?" Dr. Carter asked on the morning of the conference, his voice full of encouragement. Maya stood in front of the mirror, adjusting the little dress her mother had bought for her, feeling out of place in the grown-up world she was about to enter. She still wasn't sure if she was ready, but one thing was certain, she couldn't turn back. This was her moment. "I think so," Maya replied, though her voice was laced with uncertainty. When they arrived at the conference, Maya's anxiety spiked. The venue was massive, and she felt small and out of place among the dozens of accomplished mathematicians and scientists. The room buzzed with chatter, as people discussed equations, theories, and groundbreaking discoveries. Maya swallowed nervously as she looked around. Every single person there was an expert. But somehow, none of them looked like her. Dr. Carter and Professor Bennett led her to a side room where she would prepare for her presentation. Maya sat in a chair, fiddling with the edge of her dress, trying to calm her nerves. What would happen when she stood in front of that crowd? Would they mock her? Would they listen? The minutes stretched into what felt like hours. And then, the time came. "Maya, it's your turn," Dr. Carter said, giving her a reassuring pat on the back. "We'll be right there with you." Maya took a deep breath and stood. Her legs felt like jelly, but she forced herself to move forward, to keep walking. As she approached the main hall, the audience's murmurs faded into an intense silence. All eyes were on her. As she stood at the podium, facing the crowd of experts, she felt small, so small, but she was also determined. She had solved the equation. She had earned this moment. "Good morning," Maya said, her voice shaking at first, but gaining strength with each word. "My name is Maya Williams, and I'm here to share a solution to a problem that no one thought could be solved." The crowd was still. Every eye was on her, but Maya didn't let the pressure get to her. She glanced down at the paper with her solution, the same one that had started this journey. She knew what she had to say. "I was watching the news a few months ago when I saw a math problem on the screen. The experts were saying it couldn't be solved, but something inside me just clicked. I took out a piece of paper and started writing down the numbers. And before I knew it, I had solved it." The room remained silent, but Maya could feel the skepticism in the air. She didn't let it bother her, though. This was her moment to prove everyone wrong. "I know I'm just a kid," Maya continued, her voice growing bolder, "but math doesn't care about age. It doesn't care who you are or where you come from. It's just numbers. And if you pay attention, if you're curious enough, the answers will come to you." Maya paused, her words hanging in the air. She had their attention now, she could feel it. The presentation continued, and Maya explained her solution in as much detail as she could, answering questions from the audience. At first, many of the questions were filled with skepticism, and some even seemed to question her methods. But with every answer she gave, Maya's confidence grew. She didn't falter. She didn't second-guess herself. She knew she was right. And then, at the end of her presentation, something unexpected happened. Professor Bennett stood up and addressed the crowd. "I've worked on this problem for years. And I can tell you, without a doubt, that Maya's solution is the correct one. It is revolutionary." The room erupted in applause. Maya's heart skipped a beat. The applause wasn't just for Dr. Carter, or for Professor Bennett, it was for her. The little girl who had solved one of the most complicated equations in mathematics. It was the moment she had dreamed of, but in that moment, it felt even more surreal than she had imagined. But as the applause continued, Maya didn't bask in the recognition. She thought about all the people who had doubted her teacher, her classmates, even some of the professors. This wasn't just her victory. It was the world's victory. She had proven that anyone, no matter their age or background, could change the world. And Maya wasn't finished yet. The firestorm had only just begun. In the days following her presentation at the International Mathematics Conference, Maya's life changed forever. What started as a quiet discovery had exploded into a global phenomenon. News outlets across the world were buzzing about the 7-year-old girl who had solved a problem that had stumped mathematicians for years. The world now knew Maya Williams as a prodigy, a genius, and an unexpected challenger to the academic establishment. Maya didn't know what to think of it all. She had never expected this level of attention. On one hand, it felt like a dream come true. Her name, now associated with one of the greatest mathematical breakthroughs of the century, was everywhere. But on the other hand, she felt overwhelmed, like she was being pulled in 1,000 directions at once. Her phone rang constantly. Her inbox flooded with messages from news outlets, academics, and fans. Everyone wanted to talk to Maya, to hear from the young girl who had turned the world of mathematics on its head. She was invited to interviews, television appearances, and even offers to write a book about her discovery. It was more attention than any 7-year-old could ever anticipate. One evening, as Maya sat at the kitchen table, working on her homework, her mom walked in, holding a newspaper. "Maya, look at this," her mom said, holding up a newspaper with a headline in bold letters, "7-year-old girl solves unsolvable math problem, a new prodigy in the making." Maya felt a lump in her throat. "It's crazy, isn't it? I don't even know what to think." Her mom sat down beside her, her expression serious but supportive. "It is crazy, baby. But you've earned it. This is your moment. You've done something incredible." Maya bit her lip. She wanted to believe her mom, wanted to feel proud of what she'd done, but the constant attention felt strange. It was like her life had been taken over by this discovery, and she wasn't sure how to navigate it. "I don't think I'm ready for all this," Maya admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's too much." Her mom reached over, squeezing her hand. "Maya, you don't have to do everything. You don't have to accept every invitation or talk to every reporter. This is your journey, and you get to decide how it goes. But remember, this is something that's never happened before. You've done something that no one thought possible." Maya's eyes filled with tears, but she quickly wiped them away. She wasn't sure if the tears were from pride, fear, or confusion. All she knew was that her world had been flipped upside down. The attention only grew from there. Maya appeared on television shows, interviewed by reporters who were eager to hear her speak about her discovery. She spoke about her passion for math, how she solved the problem, and what it felt like to challenge the experts. But the more she spoke, the more the world seemed to scrutinize her. Some were supportive. Many mathematicians, who had initially dismissed her, now spoke out in awe of her work. Some even credited Maya with opening up new avenues of thought in the field of mathematics. Others, however, were less kind. "It's an anomaly," one well-known professor said in a televised interview. "We can't just let a child be the face of this." Sure, Maya solved a problem, but this was just a lucky guess. It's not like she understood the implications of what she did. It's simply a stroke of luck. That comment stung. Maya had already felt the weight of being treated like a novelty act, a 7-year-old girl who had gotten lucky. But this was different. This was an outright dismissal of her hard work and talent. It wasn't just the math community she had to prove herself to, it was the world. Despite these harsh comments, Maya tried to remain focused. She kept working on her math problems, continuing to explore the topics that had fascinated her long before her discovery went viral. But the pressure began to build. With every new headline and every new interview, Maya felt like the weight of the world was on her small shoulders. One afternoon, Maya sat in her room, trying to finish her homework, when there was a knock at the door. "Maya?" her dad called from the hallway. "Can we talk?" Maya closed her textbook and walked into the living room, where her parents were waiting for her. Her dad was sitting on the couch, his brow furrowed in thought. "Maya, I know all of this attention has been overwhelming," he said gently. "But we want you to know something. We're so proud of you. We always have been. But more than that, we want you to keep your feet on the ground. This world will test you. People will say things to try to shake your confidence. Some will doubt you. Some will praise you. But none of it changes who you are or what you've accomplished." Maya looked down at the floor, feeling the weight of his words. "It just feels like everything's happening so fast," she whispered. "Like I'm not ready for it." Her dad smiled softly. "None of us are ready for things like this. But you're stronger than you think. You've already proven that." Maya's mom chimed in, her voice full of reassurance. "Remember, Maya, your gift is special. But it's also a part of who you are. You don't have to prove anything to anyone. You've already proven it to yourself." Maya smiled faintly, grateful for their support. "I guess you're right," she said quietly. Her parents gave her a comforting hug, and for the first time in days, Maya felt a little lighter. She didn't have to prove anything to anyone. She just had to keep being herself, and that was enough. Meanwhile, back at school, things weren't much better. As much as Maya tried to ignore the growing media storm around her, it was hard not to notice the stares from her classmates. Some were fascinated by her newfound fame, wanting to talk to her about her discovery and ask for her autograph. Others, though, seemed distant, like they didn't quite know how to react to her sudden rise to fame. It wasn't until one afternoon in the schoolyard that Maya encountered the one person whose opinion mattered the most, her teacher, Mrs. Hayes. Mrs. Hayes approached Maya, her expression serious. "Maya, I need to talk to you." Maya's heart sank. She hadn't heard from Mrs. Hayes since their conversation about her discovery, and she knew this wasn't going to be easy. "I've been watching the news," Mrs. Hayes began. "And I just want to say, I was wrong. I didn't believe you, but now I see that you were right all along. You've done something amazing, and I'm proud of you." Maya blinked in surprise. After everything that had happened, she hadn't expected an apology, let alone praise from Mrs. Hayes. The words felt strange, but they also felt good. "Thank you," Maya said quietly, not knowing what else to say. Mrs. Hayes smiled warmly. "You've taught me something, Maya. And I think it's something a lot of us could learn: never underestimate the power of a curious mind, no matter how young." Maya smiled back, feeling a sense of pride. It was a small victory, but it was a victory nonetheless. For the first time in a long while, Maya felt like maybe, just maybe, she was starting to belong in this new world. As the weeks passed, Maya found herself in a constant whirlwind of activity. More media interviews came in, each more intense than the last. Professors, mathematicians, journalists, and fans alike all clamored for her attention, eager to hear more from the young prodigy who had cracked an equation that even the brightest minds couldn't solve. But despite the growing adoration and recognition, a persistent sense of doubt began to creep into Maya's thoughts. The first signs of this doubt surfaced during one of the many interviews she gave on national television. Maya had been preparing for the interview all morning, trying to focus on the math, on the work she loved, and not on the storm of attention that surrounded her. But when the interviewer, a well-known journalist named Trevor Sanders, asked her the question she wasn't prepared for, everything inside her faltered. "So, Maya," Trevor said with a smile, his voice smooth but probing. "Everyone is calling you a genius. But do you think your discovery is really as important as people are making it out to be? Is it possible that it's just a fluke? That maybe someone else would have figured it out, if they'd had the time?" Maya froze. The words hit her like a ton of bricks, and she could feel her heart skip a beat. The question echoed in her mind, spinning her thoughts into a whirlwind. Is it a fluke? Maya repeated in her mind. What if it is? What if I didn't deserve all this attention? She forced a smile, her eyes darting to Dr. Carter and Professor Bennett, who were sitting just off camera, watching her intently. They had prepared her for tough questions, but this felt different. This felt like an accusation. I don't think it's a fluke," Maya stammered, trying to sound confident. I solved the problem. I didn't guess. It just, made sense to me." Trevor raised an eyebrow. "But are you sure that you understand the full implications of the solution? This isn't just about solving an equation, it's about understanding how it fits into the larger body of work in mathematics." Maya felt her stomach churn. She wasn't sure if she understood all the implications of her solution. She was just a kid, after all. She hadn't spent years studying the theory behind it, hadn't worked through all the decades of research that had led to this point. She just knew that when she saw the problem, something inside her clicked, and the answer felt like it was waiting for her to discover it. But now, the question of whether she truly understood her own work seemed to loom over her. Did she even belong in this world of experts? Could she possibly have solved something so complex when she wasn't yet even in second grade? The rest of the interview passed in a blur. Maya tried to smile and answer the questions, but the shadow of doubt had taken root in her mind. What if she was wrong? What if everyone was just hyping her up for the sake of a good story? What if they were right, and she was just a little girl who happened to get lucky? The next few days were a blur. Maya tried to focus on her schoolwork, but the questions continued to echo in her head. The constant media pressure, combined with the growing skepticism from some of the most respected mathematicians in the world, left her feeling exhausted and unsure. At school, things weren't any easier. Her classmates continued to treat her as though she was some kind of celebrity, which only made Maya feel more isolated. She wasn't just Maya anymore, she was that girl who solved the math problem. One day, during recess, Maya sat alone on the swings, staring at the ground. Her mind was filled with the criticism she'd heard, both from the media and from some of the professors who had dismissed her work as a fluke. She couldn't escape it. She was stuck in a whirlwind of doubt, unable to silence the voices that questioned her abilities. "Hey, Maya. You okay?" Maya looked up to see her friend, Ella, standing nearby. Ella was one of the few people at school who had never treated Maya any differently after her discovery. She was Maya's best friend and had always been there, even before the media storm. "I don't know, Ella," Maya admitted, her voice cracking slightly. "I don't know if I belong in all of this. What if they're right? What if I didn't actually solve anything?" Ella sat down on the swing beside her, giving Maya a sympathetic look. "Maya, you've been talking about math for as long as I've known you. You love it. You were solving problems before you even started school. I know you. You're not a fluke." Maya swallowed hard, trying to hold back tears. "But the experts, they keep saying I don't understand the bigger picture. That I'm just a kid who happened to guess the right answer." Ella shook her head. "No way. They're just jealous, Maya. They can't handle the fact that you did something they couldn't. You're not like them. You're special. Maya smiled faintly at her friend's words, but they didn't feel true. Ella didn't understand the pressure. Maya had seen the looks from the professors and journalists who were skeptical of her. She had seen the articles that questioned whether a 7-year-old could really understand the work she had done. That evening, Maya sat with her parents at the dinner table, quietly picking at her food. She hadn't said much all day, and her parents were beginning to notice. "Sweetheart," her dad said gently, looking up from his plate. "We know you've been through a lot lately. You've got a lot of people asking a lot of questions. But we just want you to know something." Maya glanced up at him, her eyes filled with doubt. "You don't have to answer to anyone but yourself," her dad continued. "You don't have to prove anything to anyone. You've already proven everything you need to. You solved that problem because you're smart, because you saw something others didn't. It's not about proving them right or wrong, it's about knowing you did something amazing." Her mom added, "You've done something no one thought was possible. You're changing the world, Maya. And don't let anyone make you feel like you don't belong." Maya looked down at her plate, feeling the weight of her parents' words. She knew they were right. But the doubt still lingered, like a shadow she couldn't shake. "I just don't know," Maya said softly. "I don't know if I understand it all. I don't know if I belong in this world." Her dad leaned forward, his eyes warm and understanding. "Maya, you're not in this world because of what you understand right now. You're in this world because you have the curiosity, the drive, and the heart to keep going. And that's what makes you different from everyone else." Maya felt a flicker of hope. Maybe they were right. Maybe it wasn't about understanding every little detail. Maybe it was about the questions, the curiosity, the spark that had started her journey. Maybe that was enough. As Maya lay in bed that night, the doubt still swirling in her mind, she made a decision. She wasn't going to let the skepticism and the pressure drown her. She wasn't going to let anyone tell her she didn't belong. She had solved the equation for a reason, and if that was enough for her, it should be enough for the world. And in that moment, as she closed her eyes and drifted off to sleep, Maya made a vow to herself: no matter what anyone said, she would keep moving forward. Because in the end, it wasn't the doubters who mattered. It was her. She was the one who had solved the problem. And that, she realized, was all that truly mattered. Maya had spent the last few weeks trying to juggle everything that had been happening around her, but it was starting to take its toll. The constant pressure, the questions, and the doubts from both within and outside her circle were becoming too much. No matter how hard she tried to focus on school and her own growth, the outside world kept pulling her in different directions. But in the midst of this overwhelming storm, something unexpected happened, something that would change everything. It began when Maya received an invitation to speak at a prestigious mathematics conference in New York City. The conference was a gathering of some of the brightest minds in the field, and the invitation to present her work in front of them felt both exciting and terrifying. For weeks, Maya had been wrestling with her self-doubt, wondering whether she truly belonged in the world of mathematics that had suddenly thrust itself into her life. Could she really stand before these experts and confidently share what she had discovered? Her parents were thrilled about the opportunity, and they encouraged Maya to embrace it. They told her that it was a chance for her to own her discovery, to be proud of what she had done. But Maya was still unsure. The weight of her recent experiences, the dismissive comments from professors, the questions about her abilities, and the doubts that had crept into her own heart, had made her hesitate. "I don't know if I can do it," Maya admitted one evening, sitting at the kitchen table with her mom. "What if I mess up? What if they all laugh at me?" Her mom smiled gently, setting down a cup of tea in front of Maya. "Sweetheart, they're not going to laugh at you. You've already proven yourself. And you don't need to impress anyone. You just need to speak your truth, and that's enough." Maya looked up at her mom, her heart swelling with a mixture of fear and gratitude. Her mom's confidence in her was unwavering, even when Maya wasn't sure she could believe in herself. "I guess," Maya said slowly. "I don't know if I'm ready to be up there, talking to all those people. What if I don't understand it all?" Her mom placed a hand on hers. "Maya, you don't have to know everything. You just need to trust yourself. The truth is, you've already done something extraordinary. You've solved a problem that no one else could. And whether or not you fully understand everything about it right now doesn't change that. Your curiosity, your ability to see things others didn't, that's what makes you so special." Maya thought about her mom's words. Maybe she didn't need to have all the answers. Maybe it wasn't about proving herself to anyone but herself. Maybe it was about showing up and sharing what she had already done, in her own way. The days leading up to the conference were a blur. Maya spent hours preparing her presentation, rehearsing her speech in front of the mirror, and practicing the complex concepts she had uncovered. Her parents, though supportive, were starting to notice how much strain Maya was under. They could see the anxiety building in her, and despite their encouragement, they worried that the pressure was too much for their young daughter to handle. On the morning of the conference, Maya woke up with a knot in her stomach. The excitement of the opportunity was still there, but it was now overshadowed by the fear of facing the experts who had been so skeptical of her work. What if she wasn't able to explain her discovery well enough? What if they found some flaw in her reasoning that would make her feel like a fraud? Her dad noticed the uncertainty in her eyes as they sat in the car on the way to the conference. "You're going to do great, Maya," he said, his voice calm and reassuring. "But you know, you don't have to prove anything. You've already done something incredible. No one can take that away from you." Maya nodded, trying to quiet the storm of doubts swirling inside her. As they arrived at the conference venue, Maya was greeted by a sea of people, mathematicians, professors, students, and professionals from all over the world. The magnitude of the event hit her all at once, and for a moment, she felt small and out of place. Her parents stayed close, giving her the space she needed to prepare for her moment. As she entered the conference hall, Maya was introduced to the audience, and the moment had arrived. There, on the stage, she stood before a crowd of the very experts who had dismissed her, unsure of whether they would accept her or challenge her once again. Maya took a deep breath and began to speak. "Hello, everyone," she started, her voice clear but trembling slightly. "My name is Maya Williams, and I am 7 years old. I'm here today to share with you a solution I found to a math problem that many people said couldn't be solved. I want to tell you how I found it and what it means to me." As she spoke, Maya could feel the weight of the room's eyes on her. Some were skeptical, others intrigued, and a few seemed eager to hear what this young girl had to say. But as she moved through her explanation, something remarkable began to happen. She felt her confidence building. With each sentence, with each part of the solution she shared, she realized something important. She wasn't just standing there to prove herself to anyone. She was standing there to share what she loved, what made her curious, and what had brought her here. When she finished her presentation, there was a moment of silence. Maya's heart pounded in her chest as she waited for the response. Would they laugh? Would they question everything she had said? Then, one of the professors in the front row stood up and clapped. Slowly, the rest of the room followed suit, and soon, the entire conference hall was filled with applause. Maya's chest swelled with pride. They weren't laughing. They weren't dismissing her. They were acknowledging her. Not as a child, not as a fluke, but as a mathematician. After the applause died down, a professor approached her on stage, a smile on his face. "Maya, that was incredible. What you've done here today is groundbreaking. You've opened up new possibilities, and I think I speak for all of us when I say that we're excited to see where your work will take you." Maya's heart soared. For the first time in weeks, she felt like she belonged. The doubts, the fears, and the skepticism that had plagued her for so long started to melt away. She had done it, not to prove anyone wrong, but to prove to herself that she was capable. As the conference wrapped up, Maya found herself surrounded by mathematicians who wanted to talk to her, ask questions, and explore her ideas further. She felt like she had just stepped into a new world, one where she wasn't just a curiosity, but a genuine contributor to the field. Later that evening, as she sat with her parents in their hotel room, Maya couldn't help but smile. "I did it," she whispered. Her mom hugged her tightly. "Yes, you did. And I'm so proud of you." Maya looked out the window, the city lights twinkling in the distance. She had faced her fears, had overcome the doubts, and had proven to herself that she was capable of achieving greatness. The journey was far from over, but for the first time in a long while, Maya felt ready for whatever came next. She wasn't just the girl who solved a math problem. She was Maya Williams, a mathematician with a future full of possibilities. And that was all that mattered. Maya's life had changed in ways she could never have imagined. After her remarkable presentation at the New York City Mathematics Conference, things had begun to shift in her favor. What had started as a storm of skepticism and doubt was slowly morphing into a sea of support. Invitations to speak at other conferences, interviews with major media outlets, and requests from universities wanting to collaborate flooded in. It was as if the world had suddenly opened its arms to her, eager to see what the 7-year-old prodigy could do next. Despite the growing recognition, Maya remained humble, trying to stay focused on her studies and the things she loved. Her family was still adjusting to the whirlwind of attention, but they remained her rock, offering support when it felt like the pressure might become too much to handle. Yet, no matter how hard they tried to shield her from the stress, it was impossible to avoid the fact that Maya was now the subject of intense scrutiny. At school, things were still difficult for Maya. While some of her classmates were fascinated by her newfound fame, others were less impressed. A few had begun to treat her like an outsider, as if her success had somehow made her different. They no longer saw her as the girl who sat next to them during math class or played at recess. They saw her as a living, breathing news story. One afternoon during lunch, as Maya sat alone at a table in the cafeteria, a group of older kids walked by. They were talking loudly, making sure she could hear. "Did you hear? That kid, Maya, solved that math problem," one of them sneered. "She's just a kid. There's no way she actually did it. They must have just let her in because she's young." Maya bit her lip, trying to ignore them. Her stomach twisted, and for a brief moment, she wished she could disappear. The constant whispers, the glances, and the rumors that circulated around her were beginning to wear her down. She didn't want to be famous, she just wanted to be a normal kid. She wanted to be treated the same as everyone else, not like some kind of circus attraction. But no matter how hard she tried to push the negativity aside, it lingered. She had solved a mathematical problem that even the brightest minds hadn't been able to crack, but the constant reminders that others didn't believe in her or didn't think she deserved the recognition made her wonder if the work she'd done was even enough. Later that day, Maya's mom could sense that something was wrong. When Maya came home from school, she seemed quieter than usual, lost in her own thoughts. Her mom sat down next to her on the couch, noticing the way Maya's shoulders were hunched. "What's going on, sweetheart?" her mom asked gently, brushing a strand of hair from Maya's face. "I'm just tired," Maya said softly, not looking her mom in the eye. "Everyone at school keeps talking about me, but it doesn't feel good anymore. It feels like they don't see me. They just see the kid who solved that math problem." Her mom nodded, understanding what Maya was feeling. "Maya, I know it's tough. People can be mean or say things that hurt, but you have to remember something: you are so much more than that problem you solved. You're Maya, and you've got so much more inside of you than just math. This doesn't define you." Maya looked up at her mom, a glimmer of hope in her eyes. "But it's like I can't just be me. I feel like people are only looking at the genius part of me, and not the part of me that just wants to play and be normal." Her mom smiled softly, taking Maya's hand in hers. "It's okay to feel like that. It's important to find balance. And the truth is, you've already done something extraordinary, and that's not going to go away." But at the same time, you don't have to carry that weight alone. We're all here for you, and we'll figure it out together. Maya nodded, comforted by her mom's words. She still didn't know how to deal with the constant attention and the pressure, but she felt a little bit better knowing that her family was there for her. As the weeks passed, Maya began to find ways to balance the demands of her newfound fame with her desire for normalcy. She worked hard to maintain her schoolwork and spent time with her friends, even though the attention on her seemed to grow with each passing day. But there was one moment that changed everything for her, a moment that would solidify her belief in her abilities and remind her of the bigger picture. It happened during a video interview with a popular news outlet. The reporter, Lisa Turner, was known for her tough questions, and Maya had been prepared for the usual flurry of queries about her discovery. However, this interview was different. Lisa asked her something that no one else had asked before. "Maya," Lisa said, her tone serious yet curious, "you've solved a problem that's baffled mathematicians for years. But beyond that, what do you think your discovery means for the future of math? How do you think it will impact the world?" Maya paused, her thoughts swirling. It was the first time someone had asked her about the big picture, about how her work could affect the world beyond the immediate recognition. She had never really considered the full implications of her solution. It had always been something personal, something that made sense to her in the moment. But now, as she reflected on Lisa's question, Maya realized something powerful. Her work wasn't just about solving a problem. It was about igniting curiosity, about opening doors to new ideas, and most importantly, about showing others that even the youngest minds could change the world. "I think," Maya said slowly, "that solving this problem is just the beginning. Maybe other kids, or even grown-ups, will see this and start asking different questions. Maybe it will lead to new discoveries, and maybe it will inspire people to keep exploring. Math isn't just about answers, it's about asking the right questions. And I think everyone should ask as many questions as they can, no matter how old they are." Lisa's eyes widened with surprise, clearly impressed by Maya's perspective. "That's an amazing answer, Maya. And you're right, curiosity is key. You're already inspiring so many people." The weight of her words hit Maya harder than she expected. She wasn't just inspiring others to think about math, she was inspiring them to think differently, to question what they knew, and to challenge themselves. In that moment, Maya realized that her discovery was about more than just a solved equation. It was about sparking a chain reaction, a ripple effect that would push others to reach further, dream bigger, and believe in their own potential. After the interview, Maya felt a shift inside herself. She realized that her journey wasn't just about handling the attention or overcoming self-doubt, it was about using her newfound platform to encourage others to follow their curiosity, to believe in their own abilities, and to pursue what seemed impossible. And as the world continued to buzz with excitement over her accomplishments, Maya felt a renewed sense of purpose. She wasn't just the girl who solved the math problem. She was a spark, someone who could help others ignite their own passions and change the world, one question at a time. As Maya lay in bed that night, staring up at the ceiling, she felt something new, peace. The doubts that had plagued her for so long seemed smaller now, and she knew that she didn't have to carry the weight of the world on her shoulders. She was a part of something bigger, something exciting, and the journey ahead was filled with endless possibilities. And that was enough. In the weeks following Maya's successful presentation at the conference, life seemed to be moving at lightning speed. Everywhere she went, people recognized her, on the street, at school, even in her local grocery store. The fame that once felt distant had become a part of her daily reality. But as much as Maya loved the newfound opportunities and recognition, she also began to feel the pressure weighing down on her. It wasn't the pressure of solving another impossible math problem, no, it was something deeper. It was the pressure of living up to the world's expectations. People no longer saw her as just a curious, smart young girl, they saw her as a symbol of genius. And though Maya had always been proud of her discovery, the weight of others' perceptions was starting to feel suffocating. At school, things had been tense. While some of her classmates had embraced her success, others remained distant. Maya couldn't shake the feeling that her peers were looking at her through a lens she wasn't sure she could fit into. She wasn't just a kid anymore. She was the kid who had done something no one else could, and with that came a new set of expectations that Maya wasn't sure she could meet. One Friday afternoon, Maya was sitting at her desk in math class, doodling absent-mindedly in her notebook. She had done all the problems for the day's lesson, but her mind kept wandering. Her teacher, Ms. Arnold, was going over an advanced problem on the board when she paused and turned to the class. "Maya, do you think you could help us with this one?" Ms. Arnold asked, smiling. The entire class turned to look at her. Maya's stomach churned, a familiar wave of anxiety washing over her. Sure, she had solved a problem that stumped university professors, but this was school. These were her peers, the kids she saw every day. She didn't want to be the center of attention anymore. She swallowed hard and glanced at the problem on the board. It wasn't particularly difficult, but it wasn't something she had practiced before. Still, Maya knew she could figure it out. After all, math was about logic and pattern, and she had a knack for finding patterns. But as she stood up and walked toward the board, a sense of dread took over her. What if she made a mistake? What if her classmates saw her as nothing more than a show-off? They already thought she was different enough. What if this was the moment that proved she wasn't as special as everyone thought? As Maya stood there with the marker in hand, she froze for a moment, staring at the problem on the board. Her mind was racing, but her body was still. All the eyes in the room seemed to bore into her, and her hand trembled slightly. I'm not sure how to do this one, Maya said, her voice barely above a whisper. The room was silent for a long moment, and then Ms. Arnold smiled reassuringly. That's okay, Maya. We all have moments where we don't know the answer right away. It's a learning process, and that's perfectly fine. But the damage had already been done. Maya could feel the judgmental glances from some of her classmates. They weren't mad or angry, but the unspoken disappointment hung in the air like a thick fog. The expectations, the constant pressure to be perfect, it was starting to feel like too much. Later that afternoon, Maya found herself walking home alone. Her parents were at work, and she had the house to herself for a few hours before they came home. The silence of the house seemed to echo her inner turmoil. She sat on the couch, clutching her notebook in her hands, but her thoughts were a million miles away. The questions kept swirling in her mind. Why am I not allowed to be normal? Why can't I just be a kid? What if I mess up again? Maya had always been curious, always loved solving problems. But now, it felt like there was a spotlight on her 24/7. Everyone expected her to be perfect, and every little mistake felt like a failure in the eyes of the world. The weight of expectations, both from others and from herself, was slowly suffocating her. Her phone buzzed on the coffee table, and she glanced at the screen. It was a message from Lily, her best friend. "Lily, hey, I've been thinking about you. Are you okay? You seemed a little off today." Maya stared at the message for a while, unsure how to respond. She had been so caught up in her own head that she hadn't realized how much it had affected her. Finally, she typed back. "Maya, I don't know, Lil. I feel like everyone's waiting for me to be perfect all the time. I can't mess up, or I'll disappoint everyone. It's getting harder." She hesitated before hitting send. She didn't want to sound ungrateful, didn't want to burden Lily with her worries. But it felt good to finally say it out loud. A few minutes later, Lily responded. "Lily, Maya, you're amazing just the way you are. You don't have to be perfect for anyone. People look up to you, not because you're always right, but because you're real. And mistakes are part of learning. We all make them." Maya read Lily's message over and over, letting the words sink in. It was exactly what she needed to hear. She had been so focused on living up to others' expectations that she had forgotten the most important thing: she didn't need to be perfect. She only needed to be herself. The next morning, as Maya walked into school, she made a decision. She wasn't going to let the pressure define her anymore. She wasn't going to let the fear of making a mistake keep her from enjoying the things she loved. When she entered her math class, she smiled at Ms. Arnold and walked confidently to her seat. The eyes of her classmates were on her, but this time, Maya didn't feel the weight of their expectations pressing down on her. After class, Ms. Arnold came over and gave her a knowing smile. "I'm proud of you, Maya. You're learning to be yourself, and that's more important than getting everything right all the time." Maya smiled back, the knot in her stomach loosening just a little. She had a long way to go, but for the first time in a while, she felt a sense of peace. She wasn't defined by her mistakes or her successes. She was defined by her curiosity, her passion for learning, and her willingness to keep going, even when things were tough. That evening, as Maya sat at the dinner table with her parents, she felt lighter than she had in weeks. Her mom looked at her with a soft smile, and her dad raised an eyebrow in curiosity. "How was school today?" her dad asked, passing the mashed potatoes. Maya paused before answering. She realized that, for the first time in a long while, she didn't have to pretend to be someone she wasn't. She didn't have to meet anyone's expectations but her own. "It was good," Maya said, her voice calm and steady. "I'm learning to just be myself." Her mom's smile widened. "That's all anyone can ask for." Maya smiled back, feeling like she was finally beginning to find her balance. She wasn't perfect, and she didn't have all the answers, but that was okay. She was allowed to make mistakes, to learn, and to grow at her own pace. And in that moment, she knew that no matter what the world expected of her, she would always stay true to who she was, curious, passionate, and, above all, imperfectly human. Maya's journey over the past few months had been a whirlwind, one full of highs and lows, and there was no telling where it would go next. Her days were filled with interviews, school, and the constant pressure to maintain the image of the young prodigy. But despite the overwhelming attention and the endless demands, Maya was determined to stay true to herself. She was starting to realize that her passion for math was more than just about solving problems, it was about understanding the world around her, about exploring the unknown and finding beauty in patterns. She didn't need to be perfect, she didn't need to be a celebrity. Maya just wanted to learn, to grow, and to continue doing the things that brought her joy. Still, as the weeks passed, Maya began to feel like she was losing control. The constant media attention, the interviews, and the expectations from others made it harder and harder to focus on what truly mattered, her love of learning. It seemed like everyone wanted something from her, either more solutions to unsolvable problems or answers to questions she wasn't prepared to answer. One evening, Maya's parents noticed her unusually quiet demeanor. As they sat down for dinner, her mom, noticing the tiredness in Maya's eyes, gently placed a hand on her daughter's shoulder. "Maya, sweetheart, are you okay?" her mom asked, her voice full of concern. "You've been so busy lately. We're worried about you." Maya didn't answer right away. She was thinking about all the expectations placed on her, thinking about how different her life had become since that fateful math conference. "I'm just tired," Maya finally said, her voice a little strained. "I don't know if I can keep doing all of this. It's like everyone expects me to be perfect all the time, and I'm not sure I can keep up." Her dad leaned in, his eyes softening. "Maya, it's okay to not have all the answers. No one expects you to be perfect, least of all us. We're proud of you for who you are, not for the problems you solve." Maya looked up at her parents, feeling a lump form in her throat. "But what if I let everyone down? What if I can't do it anymore? What if they realize I'm just a kid who got lucky?" Her mom smiled warmly, brushing a strand of hair behind Maya's ear. "Sweetheart, what you've done is incredible. But what you need to remember is that no one expects you to be perfect. They look up to you because of your heart, your curiosity, and your passion for learning. If you need a break, take it. We'll support you, no matter what." Maya took a deep breath. For the first time in a while, she felt a sense of relief. Maybe it wasn't about constantly pushing herself to meet other people's expectations. Maybe it was about finding peace within herself and not worrying about what others thought. That night, after dinner, Maya decided to take a step back from the whirlwind of activity. She spent time reading her favorite books, drawing, and solving problems just for the joy of it. No interviews, no pressure to perform. Just her and the things she loved. The next morning, Maya woke up feeling more at peace than she had in weeks. She felt recharged and ready to face the world, not as the math genius everyone thought she was, but as Maya, the curious, imaginative young girl who loved exploring the mysteries of the world. As she sat down at her desk to begin her homework, Maya glanced at the math book on her shelf. The problems inside no longer felt like a heavy burden. Instead, they felt like puzzles waiting to be solved, each one offering a new challenge to explore. She didn't need to solve every problem that stumped the world's greatest minds. What mattered was the process, the journey, and the thrill of discovery. Later that afternoon, Maya was walking home from school when she ran into an old friend from her neighborhood, Kayla. Kayla had always been a supportive friend, and Maya was relieved to see her smiling face. "Hey, Maya. How's it going? You've been kind of a big deal lately, huh?" Kayla said with a playful grin. Maya laughed softly. "Yeah, I guess so. It's been kind of crazy. But, honestly, I'm just glad to see you. Everything's been so hectic lately, I haven't had much time for anything else." Kayla raised an eyebrow. "You don't seem like your usual self. You okay?" Maya hesitated before answering. "I'm just tired, I guess. Everyone expects me to be this perfect math whiz all the time, and it's starting to feel like too much. I don't want to let anyone down, but I also don't want to lose who I am." Kayla nodded sympathetically. "I get that. I mean, it's awesome that you're so good at math, but that doesn't mean you have to carry the world on your shoulders. You're allowed to take a break. You don't have to do it all." Maya smiled. "Thanks, Kayla. I think I needed to hear that." The conversation with Kayla had helped Maya see things more clearly. She didn't have to be perfect for anyone. She could take her time, learn at her own pace, and still be proud of her accomplishments. She didn't have to solve every impossible problem to prove her worth. The following week, Maya made a decision. She would take a break from the public eye for a while. No more interviews, no more public speaking engagements, just time for herself. It wasn't that she didn't appreciate the attention or the opportunities that had come her way. It was just that she needed to reconnect with her love for learning, to remind herself why she fell in love with math in the first place. She spent her afternoons in the quiet of her room, reading books, solving problems for fun, and letting her imagination run wild. She rediscovered her love for the subject, not because she was being praised for it, but because it made her feel alive. Each problem, each question, was an adventure waiting to be explored. And as the days passed, Maya realized that, in taking this step back, she was regaining her sense of purpose. She wasn't just solving math problems for the approval of others. She was solving them because they fascinated her, because they challenged her, and because they allowed her to see the world in a different light. One afternoon, while working through a particularly tricky problem, Maya felt a familiar thrill rush through her as she arrived at a solution. It wasn't the hardest problem she had ever solved, but it felt like a small victory, a reminder of why she loved math in the first place. And as she sat there, smiling to herself, she realized something important: it wasn't the accolades or the recognition that mattered. What mattered was her journey, her curiosity, and her willingness to keep asking questions. Maya was no longer just the girl who solved the impossible problem. She was a young girl with a world of possibilities ahead of her, a curious mind full of questions and a heart eager to explore. And in that moment, Maya knew that no matter what the future held, she would always be true to herself. She would keep solving problems, keep asking questions, and keep learning, not because the world expected her to, but because she couldn't imagine doing anything else. As Maya sat back in her chair, feeling the satisfaction of another small triumph, she smiled. The pressure was still there, lurking in the background, but it no longer felt like a heavy burden. She had found a new balance, one that allowed her to follow her passions while still being true to who she was. And with that, Maya felt ready for whatever came next. Maya's decision to step back from the public spotlight was a turning point, one that had allowed her to reclaim a sense of control over her life. The noise, the cameras, and the endless interviews had all become overwhelming. But now, in the quiet of her room, with only her thoughts and her math problems for company, Maya found peace once more. She was rediscovering the simple joy of learning, without the weight of expectation hanging over her shoulders. However, just as things seemed to settle down, life threw another curveball her way. It came in the form of an unexpected email, a message from the prestigious Ivy League university that had first brought Maya into the public eye. She stared at the subject line in disbelief. Invitation, exclusive math symposium for young prodigies. Maya hesitated before opening it. Part of her wanted to ignore it. She had been enjoying her time away from the limelight, and the last thing she wanted was to jump back into the whirlwind of high-stakes academia. But the other part of her, the part that was still deeply passionate about math, felt an undeniable pull. She clicked open the email, and as she read through the invitation, her heart began to race. The symposium was an exclusive event, only for a select few young minds who had made significant contributions to the field. Maya's work on the unsolvable problem had garnered attention, and now she was being invited to share her insights with the brightest minds in mathematics. The invitation was tempting, and Maya knew that turning it down could mean missing an opportunity that would shape her future. But the thought of once again being under the microscope, of being scrutinized by people who expected greatness from her, made her stomach churn. Could she handle it? Was she ready to face the pressure once more? Maya knew she needed to talk to someone before making a decision. She needed advice, someone who could help her navigate this next step without feeling the weight of others' expectations. Without thinking twice, she grabbed her phone and dialed Lily's number. "Hey, Maya. What's up?" Lily answered, her voice bright as always. "I got an invitation to speak at a math symposium." "It's like, a big deal," Maya said, her voice tinged with uncertainty. "I'm not sure what to do. I've been enjoying my break from all the pressure, but I don't want to turn this down if it's something important." Lily was quiet for a moment. "Wow, that's huge. I get why you're torn. But you know what? You're the only one who knows what's best for you. If you feel like you're ready for it, then go for it. But if you feel like you need more time, that's okay, too. No one's going to think less of you for taking a step back." Maya sighed in relief at her friend's words. "Thanks, Lil. That actually helps a lot. I think I need to take some time to think about it. Maybe I'll go, but I want to make sure I'm doing it for the right reasons." "Exactly. Don't do it because you feel like you have to. Do it because you want to. And remember, you're still the same amazing person, no matter what anyone else expects." Maya smiled as she hung up the phone. Lily's words resonated deeply with her. Maya didn't need to prove anything to anyone. She had already done something incredible, but it was time for her to decide what her next steps would be, not based on others' expectations, but on her own desires and passions. That evening, Maya took a long walk around the neighborhood, contemplating what Lily had said. Her heart told her that she loved math, that she still wanted to explore the world of numbers and patterns. But she didn't want to rush into the symposium just because it was expected of her. She needed to approach it on her terms, in a way that would keep her true to who she was. A few days later, after much thought and reflection, Maya made her decision. She would attend the symposium, but she would do it with one condition: she would not let it define her. She would speak about the things that fascinated her, about the questions she still had, about the excitement of solving problems, and about how curiosity, not perfection, was the true path to growth. When the day of the symposium arrived, Maya felt a mixture of excitement and nerves. She had not shared her work with the world in a while, and the thought of being in front of so many accomplished mathematicians made her heart race. But as she stood in front of the audience, she felt a sense of calm wash over her. This was not about impressing anyone. This was about sharing her love for learning. The room was filled with young prodigies, students who had already made names for themselves in the field of mathematics. The professors who were there to mentor them, to guide them, were some of the brightest minds in academia. But as Maya stepped up to the podium, she realized that the only person she needed to impress was herself. She began her presentation with a story, one that was very personal. She talked about the math problem that had changed her life, about how she had felt when no one believed in her, and how she had found the answer not through genius, but through persistence and a genuine love for learning. She spoke about her journey, not just as a young prodigy, but as a curious young girl who had faced challenges, doubts, and fears, and had come through stronger on the other side. As she spoke, the audience grew quiet. They listened intently, not just because of her brilliant mind, but because of the raw honesty and passion with which she shared her story. Maya wasn't standing before them as a symbol of perfection. She was standing before them as herself, flawed, imperfect, and human. When she finished her talk, the room was silent for a moment, and then, to Maya's surprise, the audience erupted into applause. It wasn't the kind of applause that came from admiration for her genius, it was the kind of applause that came from respect for her authenticity. As Maya stepped down from the podium, she felt a weight lift off her shoulders. She had shared her truth, and in doing so, she had found a new level of freedom. It wasn't about being perfect. It wasn't about meeting the world's expectations. It was about embracing who she was, flaws and all, and finding joy in the journey of discovery. After the symposium, Maya returned home feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. Her parents, who had attended the event, were beaming with pride. "You were amazing, Maya," her dad said, pulling her into a hug. "We're so proud of the way you handled everything. You were true to yourself." Maya smiled, feeling a warmth in her heart. "Thanks, Dad. I think I finally get it. It's not about being perfect, it's about being real." Her mom kissed the top of her head. "And that's what makes you so special, Maya. You're not just a genius. You're a wonderful, thoughtful, kind person, and that's what really matters." Maya nodded, realizing that the journey ahead was not about seeking validation from others. It was about following her own path, one where her love for math, her curiosity, and her desire to make a difference were the guiding lights. And as Maya looked ahead to the future, she knew that no matter where her journey took her, she would always stay true to herself. Because the greatest discovery of all was learning to embrace her own unique brilliance, and that was a discovery no one could take away from her. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? After Maya's successful presentation at the math symposium, the world seemed to slow down. The pressure that had once weighed heavily on her shoulders began to lift, and she was left with a sense of peace and accomplishment. For the first time in a long while, Maya felt free to just be herself. She spent the next few weeks focusing on her studies and rekindling her passion for math, the joy of solving problems with no expectations other than her own curiosity. Her social media had quieted down significantly, and Maya appreciated the calm that came with it. However, she knew that it wasn't going to stay that way forever. The world still remembered her, still looked at her as the girl who had solved the impossible math problem that had stumped university professors for years. And sure enough, the next challenge arrived sooner than she had expected. One afternoon, as Maya sat in the living room reading through a new math journal, her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen and saw an unfamiliar number. "Hello?" she answered, her voice cautious. "Maya, hi. It's Dr. Elaine Richards from the Math Institute," the voice on the other end of the line said, sounding excited. "I hope I'm not catching you at a bad time." Maya's heart skipped a beat. Dr. Richards was one of the top mathematicians in the world, a name she had read about in textbooks. She couldn't believe she was actually speaking with her. No, not at all. How can I help you, Dr. Richards? Maya said, trying to keep her voice steady despite the fluttering in her chest. I wanted to personally reach out to you, Dr. Richards continued. We've been following your progress closely, and we've got a new problem we've been trying to solve here at the Institute. It's a bit different from the one you worked on before, but we think you might be able to make a breakthrough. Would you be willing to take a look? Maya's mind raced. The idea of working with Dr. Richards, someone she admired so much, was incredibly tempting. But the thought of jumping back into the world of high-stakes mathematics brought with it a rush of anxiety. Was she ready for this? Did she even want to go down that path again? Maya took a deep breath and remembered what Lily had told her, do it because you want to, not because you feel like you have to. After a long pause, Maya finally answered, I'd love to take a look at the problem. But I need to make sure I'm doing this for the right reasons. I want to be excited about it, not overwhelmed. Dr. Richards laughed softly. Of course, we respect that completely. We'll send you the details, and you can take your time with it. No pressure, just curiosity. As the conversation ended and Maya hung up the phone, she felt a mixture of excitement and trepidation. The opportunity was incredible. But could she really dive back into the world of complex math problems and the demands that came with it? Would she be able to stay true to herself and avoid the pressure she had felt in the past? She glanced at the clock, it was nearly dinner time. Maya decided to talk things through with her parents. They had always been supportive of her decisions, and this one felt like a big one. She needed their insight, just as she had in the past. That evening, as they sat around the dinner table, Maya brought up the phone call with Dr. Richards. You know, I got a call today, Maya said, her voice tentative. Dr. Elaine Richards from the Math Institute wants me to help with a new problem they've been working on. She said it's a big challenge, and she thinks I might be able to make a breakthrough. Her parents exchanged a glance before her dad spoke. Wow, that's a big opportunity, Maya. What do you think about it? Maya paused, her fork hovering in midair. I don't know. I want to say yes, but I'm also worried that I might get caught up in the pressure again. I don't want to feel like I'm being pushed to do something just because people expect me to. I want to make sure I'm doing it because I love the challenge, not because I have to. Her mom smiled gently. Maya, I think you've learned a lot about what matters most to you. You've come a long way in understanding your boundaries. If you feel like this is something that excites you, then go for it. But if it feels like too much, it's okay to step back. Her dad nodded. You're in control here. Don't do it because it's what other people want. Do it because it's something you truly want to explore. Maya looked at her parents, her heart swelling with gratitude. They were right. This was her journey. She had the power to choose how she moved forward. I think I'm going to do it, Maya said, her voice firm. But I'll take it one step at a time. If it ever feels too overwhelming, I'll pull back. I just want to make sure I'm always doing it for the right reasons. Her parents smiled proudly at her decision. We're proud of you, Maya. No matter what you decide, we know you'll make the right choice for yourself. Maya smiled back at them, feeling reassured. She wasn't doing this for the accolades, for the praise, or for anyone else's expectations. She was doing it because she loved the process, because she had a passion for learning, and because she knew that, at the end of the day, that was what mattered most. The next day, Maya received the details of the problem from Dr. Richards. It was a complex challenge, one that involved multiple branches of mathematics, number theory, geometry, and algebra, interwoven in a way that made it incredibly difficult to approach. But as she read through the problem, Maya felt something she hadn't felt in a while, excitement. It wasn't the pressure to be the best. It wasn't the need to solve something that would bring her fame. It was the thrill of discovery. The problem was a puzzle, and Maya loved puzzles. She felt her curiosity reignite as she began to brainstorm possible approaches, her mind buzzing with ideas. This was what she had missed, the joy of diving deep into a problem without worrying about the outside world. Maya felt a sense of peace settle over her as she realized that she was ready. This challenge would be different. She would face it with the same enthusiasm and determination that had first sparked her love for math. She had taken her time to get here. She had learned to listen to herself, to understand her boundaries, and to prioritize her own passions over the expectations of others. And now, as she sat down to work on the problem, Maya knew that whatever the outcome, she was doing it for the right reasons. The road ahead might still have its challenges. But for the first time in a long time, Maya felt confident that she was on the right path. Maya sat at her desk, surrounded by scattered notebooks, papers filled with equations, and her trusted calculator. The soft hum of the lamp above her was the only sound in the room as she examined the math problem Dr. Richards had sent her. The complexity of it fascinated her, the layers of numbers and geometric shapes swirled together in ways that made her mind race. It was unlike anything she had worked on before. Her fingers tapped rhythmically on the desk as she pondered the first part of the problem. The initial approach seemed clear, solve for the unknown variables, but the deeper she dug, the more she realized that things weren't as simple as they appeared. The problem contained several interconnected concepts that required a more advanced understanding of number theory, geometry, and algebra than she had originally anticipated. But rather than feeling overwhelmed, Maya felt a rush of excitement. This was exactly the kind of challenge she had been looking for. It was difficult, yes, but it was also thrilling. The key to solving it lay in unraveling the relationships between the different variables, and Maya was eager to figure it out. She started with the geometric portion of the problem, sketching diagrams and labeling points, angles, and curves. The shapes on the page seemed to dance in front of her eyes as she worked, each one slowly revealing its secrets. She found herself getting lost in the beauty of the problem, how the lines interacted, how the angles came together in harmony, like a well-choreographed dance. Maya took a deep breath and smiled to herself. This was what she loved, this feeling of discovery, the slow unfolding of a problem that seemed insurmountable at first but was gradually becoming clearer. She knew that this kind of work was not about quick solutions or immediate answers. It was about patience and persistence, about allowing the numbers to guide you, to lead you where they wanted you to go. She glanced at the clock. It was late, but Maya was so engrossed in her work that she didn't want to stop. The hours had slipped by unnoticed, and she felt like she was on the verge of a breakthrough. The pieces of the puzzle were starting to fit together in a way she hadn't anticipated. Just as she was about to make a critical connection, her phone buzzed, breaking her concentration. Maya sighed, irritated at the interruption, but picked it up anyway. It was a text from Lily. "Lily, hey, how's the math problem going? Are you still alive in there?" Grinning face with sweat. Maya chuckled, her frustration dissipating. She quickly typed back. "Maya, yeah, I'm still here. I'm working on it. It's tough, but I think I'm getting closer. I've got a breakthrough waiting, I just need to put the pieces together." "Lily, that's awesome. You've got this, Maya. Just remember to take breaks and eat. You can't solve math problems on an empty stomach." Winking face. Maya laughed at the message, grateful for her friend's encouragement. She knew Lily was right. It was easy to get lost in the problem and forget about the basics, like food and rest. Maya glanced at the clock again and realized that it was almost midnight. She hadn't eaten since dinner. With a reluctant sigh, Maya pushed her papers aside and stood up to grab a snack from the kitchen. She needed a moment to step away and clear her head. As she walked down the hallway, she thought about how much she had changed since that first time she solved the unsolvable problem. Back then, she had been driven by a need to prove herself, to show everyone that she was more than just a young girl from a small town. But now, things felt different. Her love for math had become about more than just solving problems, it had become a way of connecting with herself, a way to explore her passions without the pressure of others' expectations. As she reached the kitchen and grabbed a granola bar, Maya's phone buzzed again. She looked at the screen and saw another message from Lily. "Lily, seriously though, take care of yourself. I know you're a genius, but you're also human." Maya smiled at her friend's thoughtful words and texted back. "Maya, thanks, Lil. You're right. I'll take a break. Maybe a snack will give me the brainpower I need to finish this thing." She took a few bites of her granola bar, then sat down at the kitchen table, thinking about everything she had learned over the past few months. She had faced challenges that had seemed insurmountable, but each time, she had overcome them by staying true to herself. The pressure to be perfect, to meet others' expectations, had been a constant force in her life, but now, Maya felt like she was in control. She was doing this for herself, not for the world, not for the accolades, but because it was something she truly loved. After a few minutes of quiet reflection, Maya returned to her desk, her mind feeling clearer. She looked at the problem once more, and this time, it clicked. The relationships between the numbers, the geometric patterns, they all fell into place. With a sense of triumph, Maya jotted down the final step of her solution, and just like that, the problem was solved. She leaned back in her chair and exhaled deeply, her heart pounding with exhilaration. The sense of satisfaction she felt wasn't just about the solution itself, it was about the journey. She had worked through it with patience and determination, and in the process, she had rediscovered the joy of learning. Maya quickly grabbed her phone and texted Lily. "Maya, I did it. It's solved." The response was almost instantaneous. "Lily, yes. You're amazing. I knew you could do it." Maya smiled, feeling a warm sense of pride. She wasn't just solving problems for the world or for anyone else's approval. She was solving them for herself, for the love of the process and the satisfaction that came from challenging herself. The next day, Maya sent her solution to Dr. Richards, feeling a sense of nervous anticipation. She didn't know what would come next, but she was excited to hear Dr. Richards' thoughts on her work. The challenge had been difficult, but the journey had been rewarding in ways she hadn't anticipated. As she hit send, Maya took a deep breath. The pressure to be perfect was gone. She had done this for herself, and that was enough. No matter what came next, she knew that she had faced this challenge with everything she had, and that, in itself, was a victory. A few days later, Maya received an email from Dr. Richards. She opened it with trembling hands, her heart racing. "Dr. Richards. Dear Maya. I have reviewed your solution to the problem, and I must say, I am thoroughly impressed. Your approach is innovative, and the way you connected the different mathematical concepts is nothing short of brilliant. You have a gift, Maya, and I am excited to see where it will take you in the future. Thank you for your hard work and dedication. Maya, I would love to meet with you in person to discuss your solution further. Please let me know when would be a good time for you. Best regards. Dr. Elaine Richards." Maya sat back in her chair, a sense of disbelief washing over her. Dr. Richards, one of the most esteemed mathematicians in the world, had praised her work. For the first time, Maya realized that she didn't need validation from anyone else. She was capable, and her love for math was enough to take her to places she had once only dreamed of. With a smile, Maya began typing her reply, ready to continue her journey, on her terms, and with the joy of discovery in her heart. The days following Maya's email exchange with Dr. Richards felt like a blur of excitement and anticipation. Her heart raced every time she checked her inbox, hoping for another message, another sign that her work had truly made an impact. The praise from Dr. Richards had given her a new sense of confidence. She had always believed in her abilities, but now she felt that belief solidified by someone she deeply admired. The world of academia was big, intimidating, and filled with sharp minds, but she had just been invited into that world, invited not just to observe, but to participate, to contribute. Maya was sitting at her desk, reading over her notes one more time, when her phone buzzed. It was another email notification. Her pulse quickened, and she hurriedly opened it. Dr. Richards. Dear Maya. Thank you for your prompt reply. I am pleased to hear that you are interested in meeting to discuss your solution further. I am currently in town for a few days for a conference, and I would love to meet with you during this time. Would you be available on Tuesday at 2 p.m.? I can arrange a meeting at my office at the Math Institute. Please let me know if this time works for you. I am looking forward to our conversation. Best regards. Dr. Elaine Richards. Maya stared at the screen for a long moment. Her hands trembled slightly as she read the words over and over again. Dr. Richards had invited her to meet in person. To sit down, face to face, with one of the most prestigious mathematicians in the world. It was an opportunity she hadn't even dared to dream of just a few months ago. She quickly typed her reply, trying to contain the excitement bubbling inside her. Maya. Dear Dr. Richards. Thank you so much for the invitation. I would be honored to meet with you on Tuesday at 2 p.m. I look forward to discussing my solution and learning from your insights. Best regards. Maya. She hit send and sat back in her chair, her thoughts racing. What would the meeting be like? What would Dr. Richards want to discuss? Maya knew she had solved the problem, but she also knew that there was much more to learn. This meeting could open doors she hadn't even considered yet, doors to opportunities, to further exploration, and perhaps even to a future in mathematics that she had never imagined. The days leading up to the meeting were a mix of anticipation and nervous energy. Maya spent her time reviewing her work, making sure she understood every step of the process, every calculation, every theoretical connection she had made. She wanted to be ready for any questions Dr. Richards might ask. But no matter how much she prepared, the butterflies in her stomach refused to subside. This was a huge moment, and Maya couldn't help but feel the weight of it. On Tuesday afternoon, Maya arrived at the Math Institute, a sleek, modern building that looked both intimidating and inspiring. She had dressed carefully, choosing a simple but professional outfit that made her feel confident. The entrance to the building was bright and airy, with tall glass windows that offered a panoramic view of the city skyline. A receptionist greeted Maya and directed her to Dr. Richards' office on the top floor. As Maya stepped into the elevator, she couldn't help but marvel at the view. She had worked so hard to get here, and now she was standing on the precipice of something bigger than she had ever imagined. When the elevator doors opened, Maya stepped out into a hallway lined with framed awards and accolades. The walls were adorned with mathematical posters, quotes from famous mathematicians, and intricate diagrams that Maya couldn't help but study as she walked past them. She finally reached Dr. Richards' office, where a young assistant greeted her with a warm smile. "Hi, you must be Maya," the assistant said, extending a hand. "Dr. Richards is expecting you. Please, come right in." Maya smiled nervously and followed the assistant into the office. The room was spacious, with bookshelves lining the walls and a large wooden desk at the center. Dr. Richards was standing by the window, looking out over the city. When she turned around and saw Maya, her face broke into a welcoming smile. "Maya, it's so wonderful to finally meet you in person," Dr. Richards said, her voice warm and genuine. "It's an honor to meet you, Dr. Richards," Maya replied, her voice a bit shaky despite her best efforts to sound confident. "Please, take a seat," Dr. Richards said, gesturing to a comfortable chair across from her desk. "I've been reviewing your work, and I must say, I am impressed. Not just by your solution, but by the way you approached the problem." Maya sat down, feeling both nervous and excited. She had prepared for this moment, but now that it was here, she wasn't sure what to expect. She watched as Dr. Richards sat down across from her, leaning forward slightly. "Tell me, Maya," Dr. Richards said, her eyes twinkling with curiosity. "What led you to this solution? How did you approach the problem? And more importantly, what inspired you to tackle it in the first place?" Maya took a deep breath, then began explaining her thought process, walking Dr. Richards through the steps she had taken to solve the problem. She described the initial challenges she had faced and how she had broken down the complex mathematical concepts into manageable pieces. As she spoke, Dr. Richards listened intently, nodding in approval at various points. "I was fascinated by how you connected geometry and algebra," Dr. Richards said, after Maya had finished explaining. "That's not something I've seen many young mathematicians do. Your approach is fresh, and it shows a deep understanding of the material." Maya felt a wave of pride wash over her. She hadn't expected such high praise, but it was exactly what she needed to hear. Dr. Richards wasn't just acknowledging the solution, she was recognizing Maya's ability to think critically and creatively. "I've been thinking about your potential, Maya," Dr. Richards continued. "You've shown us that you're capable of much more than just solving problems. You have the mind of a true mathematician, and I believe you have the potential to contribute to the field in significant ways. There are many opportunities I'd like to discuss with you, both here at the Institute and beyond." Maya's heart skipped a beat. This was more than she had ever expected. She had dreamed of making an impact in the world of mathematics, but she had never imagined that it could happen so quickly, so suddenly. "I'd love to hear about those opportunities, Dr. Richards," Maya said, her voice steady now, her nerves replaced with excitement. "I'm eager to learn more and see where I can contribute." Dr. Richards smiled warmly. "I think we can do great things together, Maya. I have no doubt that you'll go far in this field." As the meeting continued, Dr. Richards outlined several potential collaborations, research projects, internships, and even the possibility of becoming part of a prestigious academic network. Maya listened intently, taking mental notes of everything that was being offered. Each opportunity felt like a doorway opening to a future she had never thought possible, but now it was right in front of her. By the end of the meeting, Maya was overwhelmed with excitement. She had come to the Institute expecting to discuss a single problem, but she was leaving with an entirely new path ahead of her. Dr. Richards had given her a glimpse of the future, a future where her passion for mathematics could take her to incredible heights. As Maya left the Math Institute that afternoon, she couldn't help but feel a sense of awe. This was just the beginning. She had solved one problem, but there were countless more waiting for her curiosity, her creativity, and her passion. And for the first time in a long while, Maya was ready. Ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, knowing that with each step, she was getting closer to her dreams. The days following her meeting with Dr. Richards felt like a whirlwind of new opportunities and challenges. Maya couldn't stop thinking about the conversation they had shared, the opportunities Dr. Richards had mentioned. For the first time in her life, she realized how small her world had been. She had always worked alone, tackling problems in isolation, but now the world of mathematics seemed vast and full of endless possibilities. Her phone buzzed with messages from her friends, congratulating her on her meeting with Dr. Richards. Even Lily had sent a long string of excited texts, offering her support and encouragement. Maya felt a surge of gratitude for her friends, for the way they had always believed in her, even when she had doubted herself. But now, as the excitement began to settle, Maya faced a new reality. The opportunities Dr. Richards had laid before her were not just promises, they were commitments. Projects, research, and the prospect of a future in academia, everything was becoming real. It wasn't just about solving math problems anymore. It was about making a real impact in the world of mathematics, about contributing to the field in a way she never thought possible. That evening, Maya sat down at her desk, her mind spinning with all the new possibilities. She had to make some decisions. Was she ready to step fully into this world? Was she ready to leave behind the quiet comfort of her hometown and immerse herself in the world of academia, where the pressure was higher, and the expectations even greater? Maya's fingers hovered over the keyboard. She had a few emails to send, one to Dr. Richards, confirming her interest in the upcoming research opportunities, and another to her parents, explaining everything that had happened over the past few days. They needed to know. They had always supported her, but this was different. This was bigger than any math problem she had ever solved. This was a career, a future, something that could shape the rest of her life. But before she could start typing, her phone rang. It was a call from her mother. Maya quickly answered, trying to calm her racing heart. "Hi, Mom," Maya said, forcing her voice to sound casual. "Maya. I just got your email," her mother's voice bubbled with excitement. "Dr. Richards reached out to you? That's amazing. I'm so proud of you." Maya smiled, her heart swelling with warmth. "Yeah, Mom. It's incredible. She wants to meet with me again. And she's offered me a chance to work with her on some research projects." There was a pause on the other end of the line, and then her mother spoke, her tone more serious. "Maya, this is a huge step. Are you sure you're ready for it? You've worked so hard to get here, but you don't have to rush. We'll support whatever you decide." Maya thought about her mother's words. She had been so focused on the opportunities ahead that she hadn't stopped to consider the weight of what was happening. Was she ready to leave the comfort of home? Was she ready for the pressures and expectations of a future in academia? I don't know, Mom," Maya admitted, her voice quiet. "It's all happening so fast. I've always dreamed of this, but now that it's here, I'm not sure. What if I'm not good enough?" Her mother's voice softened. "Maya, you've always been good enough. You've proven that time and time again. Don't let fear stop you from going after what you deserve. You've worked hard, and now it's your time to shine. We believe in you, and I know Dr. Richards does too." Maya took a deep breath, her confidence slowly returning. Her mother was right. She had spent so long doubting herself, but now she had a chance to prove what she was capable of, not just to others, but to herself. This was her moment. "Thanks, Mom," Maya said, a smile tugging at the corners of her mouth. "I needed to hear that." "Of course, sweetheart. Whatever you decide, we're here for you. You've always made us proud." As she hung up, Maya sat back in her chair, her mind finally starting to settle. The decision ahead of her wasn't easy, but it was hers to make. She had the support of her family, her friends, and now Dr. Richards. Maya knew that she wasn't alone on this journey, and that thought brought her a sense of peace. She turned her attention back to her emails. First, she typed out a response to Dr. Richards, expressing her excitement and gratitude for the opportunity to collaborate on the research projects. Maya. Dear Dr. Richards. Thank you so much for the incredible opportunity. I'm very excited to move forward with the research projects and to contribute to the work you're doing. I've been thinking about this a lot, and I feel that this is the right step for me. I'm looking forward to learning from you and working together. Please let me know the next steps. Best regards. Maya. She hit send, feeling a weight lift off her shoulders. That was done. Now, she needed to talk to her parents. She composed a thoughtful email to them, explaining everything that had happened and the opportunities she had been offered. She knew they would be proud, but she also wanted them to understand the gravity of the situation. This was more than just solving a problem, it was a chance to build something meaningful in a field she was passionate about. Maya. Dear Mom and Dad. I have some big news to share. Dr. Richards, the mathematician who reached out to me, has offered me the chance to work with her on several research projects. I'll be contributing to important work in the field of mathematics, and this could open doors to even more opportunities. I know it's a huge step, but I feel ready to take it. I'm excited and a little nervous, but I'm confident this is the right path for me. I wanted to share this with you both because I value your support and guidance. I'll keep you updated as things progress. Love. Maya. With a final click, Maya sent the email and sat back in her chair, feeling a sense of accomplishment. She had taken the first steps toward a new future, one that was uncertain and full of challenges, but also full of promise. The next day, Maya woke up early, her mind racing with thoughts of what lay ahead. She had a meeting scheduled with Dr. Richards to discuss the next steps, and her heart beat faster at the thought of what the future might hold. This was it. The moment when everything changed. Her phone buzzed as she ate breakfast. It was a reply from her parents. "Mom. We are so proud of you, Maya. You've worked so hard for this, and we have no doubt you're going to do amazing things. We'll support you every step of the way. Can't wait to hear all about it when you get the chance." Maya smiled, her heart full. She wasn't alone. She had her family, her friends, and now Dr. Richards. The future was waiting for her, and it was up to her to make the most of it. With a renewed sense of determination, Maya grabbed her bag and headed out the door, ready to take the next step on her journey, into the unknown. Maya's heart raced as she walked into the grand, modern building of the Math Institute. It had only been a few weeks since her meeting with Dr. Richards, and already, her life was transforming in ways she could never have imagined. Today, she was headed to the research lab where she would meet the team that Dr. Richards had invited her to work with. It was an intimidating place, filled with whiteboards covered in complex equations, stacks of academic journals, and sharp minds. But Maya was determined. She had earned this spot, and she was going to prove she belonged. As she entered the lobby, she was greeted by a bright-eyed assistant named Sarah, who had been assigned to guide her through the institute. Sarah was friendly, immediately putting Maya at ease with her warm smile and casual conversation. "Dr. Richards speaks very highly of you," Sarah said as they walked through the sleek halls. "She mentioned you'd be a great addition to the team." Maya could hardly believe her ears. To be spoken about so positively by someone like Dr. Richards was a huge honor. It made her feel like she had truly earned her place among these brilliant minds. After a short walk through a corridor lined with research papers and open meeting rooms, they arrived at a set of double doors that led into the research lab. Maya felt a flutter of nerves in her stomach, but she pushed it aside, focusing on the opportunity ahead. Sarah opened the door, and they entered. Inside, the lab was alive with activity. Groups of mathematicians were scattered around the room, hunched over laptops or whiteboards, working through complex problems. A large, round table in the center was covered with papers, notebooks, and textbooks. The sound of scribbling pens and occasional murmurs filled the air. Dr. Richards, who had been speaking to a few colleagues at the far end of the room, looked up and smiled when she saw Maya. She waved her over. "Maya, I'm glad you made it." Dr. Richards greeted her, standing up and extending her hand. "Welcome to the lab. I'm sure you'll find this space inspiring." "Thank you for having me," Maya replied, her voice slightly shaky but filled with gratitude. "This is incredible." Dr. Richards led Maya to an empty desk beside a large whiteboard covered with intricate diagrams and equations. The whiteboard seemed to be a map of mathematical ideas, all interconnected, with some sections marked in bright colors, others filled with dense text. Maya felt a wave of awe. This was the world of mathematics she had longed to be a part of, but seeing it up close was overwhelming. "You'll be working alongside Alex and Tasha on our latest project," Dr. Richards explained, motioning toward two researchers seated at the table. "They're both brilliant mathematicians, and I'm sure you'll learn a lot from them." Maya nodded, her stomach doing flips. She had read about Alex and Tasha's work. They were well known in their field for their contributions to topology and algebraic geometry. Being assigned to work with them was both thrilling and daunting. Alex, a tall man in his early 30s with dark curly hair and glasses, looked up from his laptop. He smiled at Maya. "Hi, Maya. It's great to meet you. We've heard a lot about you." Tasha, a short woman with short red hair and sharp eyes, added, looking forward to working together. Maya smiled, feeling a bit overwhelmed but determined. She couldn't afford to let self-doubt get in the way. She was here because of her own abilities, and she would prove herself. Dr. Richards gave them a brief overview of the project. It was a complex one, involving the study of high-dimensional spaces and their connections to topological quantum field theory. The research aimed to develop new methods of visualizing and understanding these spaces in ways that had never been done before. Maya had done some preliminary research on the topic, but she knew it would be challenging to contribute meaningfully right away. "I'll leave you all to it," Dr. Richards said, her tone confident. "Maya, we're excited to see how your insights can help move this project forward. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask." As Dr. Richards left the room, Maya took a seat at the desk and opened her laptop. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. She felt an overwhelming sense of responsibility. She was no longer just a student with a problem to solve, she was part of a team working on something groundbreaking. It was a thrilling thought, but also a daunting one. Tasha leaned over from her desk. "I know it's a lot to take in," she said with a reassuring smile. "But don't worry. We've all been there. If you need help getting started, just ask." "Thanks," Maya replied, grateful for Tasha's kindness. "I'm just a little overwhelmed." "It's normal," Alex said, his voice friendly but direct. "But once you get into the flow of things, you'll be fine. We're all here to help each other." Maya nodded, taking a deep breath. She had to push past the feeling of inadequacy. She belonged here. She had proven herself with her mathematical insight, and she would prove it again in this lab. For the next few hours, the team worked together on the project, reviewing previous research, brainstorming ideas, and discussing potential directions for their work. Maya contributed where she could, suggesting a few novel approaches based on her recent studies. Though her contributions were small, they were appreciated, and that sense of inclusion made her feel more confident. When the team broke for lunch, Maya felt a sense of accomplishment. She had survived her first day in the research lab, and though she had a lot to learn, she was excited to be a part of something so important. Over the next few weeks, Maya found herself getting more comfortable with the team and the project. She began to understand the complex mathematical concepts that were central to their work, and her contributions grew more significant. She had moments of doubt, but they were fewer and farther between. The more she learned, the more she realized how much she had to offer. Her ability to think outside the box, to approach problems from unconventional angles, was becoming an asset to the team. Alex and Tasha were patient with her, answering questions and guiding her when she needed it. Dr. Richards continued to offer guidance and encouragement, but she also trusted Maya to take initiative. It was a delicate balance, but Maya thrived in the environment of support and challenge. One afternoon, as Maya was reviewing some calculations, Dr. Richards came into the lab with a broad smile on her face. "I have great news," she said, her voice full of excitement. Maya looked up, her curiosity piqued. "We've been invited to present our research at the upcoming International Mathematical Conference," Dr. Richards continued. "And I want you to be a part of the presentation." Maya's heart skipped a beat. The thought of presenting her work, of sharing the findings with some of the brightest minds in mathematics, was both thrilling and terrifying. But she knew one thing for sure, this was the opportunity of a lifetime. "Really?" Maya asked, her voice filled with wonder. "Yes, really," Dr. Richards said, smiling warmly. "You've earned it, Maya. You're a valuable member of this team, and I can't wait to see what you'll contribute." Maya felt a rush of excitement. She was part of something big now, something that could shape the future of mathematics. And this was only the beginning. As she sat back in her chair, Maya realized just how far she had come. From solving a math problem that stumped university professors to standing on the edge of a groundbreaking research presentation, her journey was unfolding in ways she had never imagined. There were still challenges ahead, but Maya was ready. She was more than ready, she was determined. And she would make her mark on the world of mathematics. Maya's heart raced as she stood backstage at the International Mathematical Conference, a venue that was unlike anything she had ever seen. The room stretched out in front of her, filled with rows of seats, and at the far end was a massive stage, illuminated by bright lights and a large screen that would soon display the team's findings. The sound of hushed conversations and the soft shuffle of papers filled the air, and Maya couldn't help but feel the weight of the moment. She had only been part of Dr. Richards' team for a few months, yet here she was, preparing to present research that had the potential to change the way mathematicians viewed high-dimensional spaces. It seemed surreal that a girl from a small town, a girl who had once struggled to get her foot in the door, was now standing at the precipice of something monumental. Her hands were clammy, and her thoughts kept racing. What if I mess up? What if they don't understand my part of the research? What if I freeze on stage? She glanced over at Dr. Richards, who was busy talking to Alex and Tasha. Maya had come to admire Dr. Richards not just for her brilliant mind, but for the way she led the team with quiet confidence and grace. Maya had learned so much from her already, but today, it was her turn to take the stage. "You've got this," Maya whispered to herself, taking a deep breath. "Just breathe. You've been working toward this moment your whole life." Tasha approached her, a reassuring smile on her face. "Are you ready?" she asked, placing a hand on Maya's shoulder. Maya nodded, though her stomach churned. "I think so," she said, forcing a smile. "It's just, this is a big deal. What if I forget what I'm supposed to say?" Tasha laughed lightly. "Trust me, you won't forget. You've got the research down. You just need to speak from the heart." "Thanks, Tasha," Maya said, her voice filled with gratitude. Alex joined them then, his face serious but kind. "We've all been there," he said. "Nerves are normal. Just remember that the audience is there to hear your ideas, not judge you. You've earned the right to be here. Now, let's show them what we've got." Maya felt a surge of confidence. With her teammates by her side, she wasn't alone in this. This wasn't just about her. It was about the team, the research, and the future of mathematics. Just as she was about to take her place on stage, Dr. Richards walked up to her. "Maya, I know this is a big moment for you," she said, her voice filled with encouragement. "But remember, this is a conversation. You're not here to impress anyone, you're here to share your work. They'll appreciate your insight." Maya smiled and nodded. "Thank you, Dr. Richards." With that, Maya took a deep breath and walked toward the stage, her step steady despite the nerves that threatened to take over. As she approached the podium, she glanced out at the audience. Hundreds of mathematicians, students, and researchers from all over the world were seated before her. Some of them were familiar faces from the field, others were strangers, but all of them were waiting for her to speak. Maya's hand trembled as she adjusted the microphone, but she forced herself to steady it. She looked down at her notes and then up at the audience, trying to calm the fluttering in her chest. "Good afternoon, everyone," she began, her voice steady but tinged with the excitement she was feeling. "Thank you for being here today. My name is Maya Carter, and I'm here to present some of the work I've been fortunate enough to be a part of, alongside my brilliant colleagues, Dr. Richards, Alex, and Tasha. Our research focuses on high-dimensional spaces and their applications in topological quantum field theory." Maya paused, taking a moment to let her words settle. She had rehearsed this part countless times, but now that she was actually speaking, it felt real, too real. As many of you know, high-dimensional spaces are incredibly complex and difficult to visualize. But through our work, we've developed new methods to not only represent these spaces more clearly but also to analyze their relationships with various fields of mathematics and physics, she continued. She took another deep breath and clicked the remote in her hand, which made the presentation slide appear on the screen behind her. The audience watched attentively as Maya began to explain the research in greater detail, breaking down the complicated equations and diagrams on the screen. She could see nods of understanding from some members of the audience, and it gave her confidence to keep going. As she progressed through the presentation, Maya found herself relaxing into the rhythm of her speech. The nervousness that had plagued her at the beginning began to fade. She spoke with conviction, explaining the methods they had used to approach the problem and the results they had achieved so far. She even included a section about her own contribution to the research, the novel way she had approached a particularly challenging equation, which had helped unlock some key insights. When she finished, there was a moment of silence. Maya's heart skipped a beat, but before she could second-guess herself, the room erupted into applause. Her breath caught in her throat as she stood there, frozen for a moment. The applause was loud, and it was for her, for the work she had done. Her research, her ideas, her voice, all of it had been heard and appreciated. Dr. Richard stood up from the back of the room, clapping along with the rest of the audience. Alex and Tasha beamed proudly from their seats. Maya felt a rush of warmth spread through her, and the nervousness she had felt earlier was replaced with a deep sense of accomplishment. The rest of the conference went by in a blur, with Maya participating in discussions, answering questions, and engaging with other mathematicians who were interested in the research. She even received a few invitations to collaborate on future projects. The validation she had received from the conference, both from her peers and from the audience, was overwhelming. Maya had proven herself, beyond the shadow of a doubt. After the presentation, Dr. Richards came over to her. "That was fantastic, Maya. You did an incredible job up there." "Thank you," Maya said, her voice still tinged with excitement. "I never thought I could do something like that. But I couldn't have done it without the support of this team." Dr. Richards smiled warmly. "It's all you, Maya. You've shown the world that you're ready for this." Maya's heart swelled with pride. She had done it. She had presented at an international conference, contributed to groundbreaking research, and proved to herself, and to the world, that she was more than capable. As the conference came to a close, Maya couldn't help but think back to the girl who had once doubted her place in the world of mathematics. That girl was gone now. She had been replaced by someone who believed in herself, someone who was ready to take on whatever came next. And Maya knew this was just the beginning. The world of mathematics was vast, and she was just getting started. The weeks following the conference felt like a whirlwind. Maya's mind buzzed with excitement as the feedback from her presentation continued to pour in. Scholars and mathematicians from around the world had reached out, eager to discuss her insights on high-dimensional spaces and their applications in topological quantum field theory. The recognition was more than she had ever imagined, but it didn't slow her down. If anything, it only fueled her desire to keep pushing further. Back at the Math Institute, Maya had become more involved with the research team. Alex, Tasha, and Dr. Richards were constantly pushing boundaries, and Maya was right there with them, contributing more confidently with each passing day. It wasn't just about solving problems now, it was about innovating, about pushing the field into new territory. Maya felt a sense of belonging she'd never known before. She was part of something that mattered. But just as she was settling into this new rhythm, a new challenge appeared on the horizon. One afternoon, as Maya worked on a particularly tricky section of their research, Dr. Richards called a team meeting. When Maya entered the conference room, she found Alex and Tasha already there, their faces serious. Maya sat down at the table, her curiosity piqued. Dr. Richards stood in front of a large whiteboard, where several complex diagrams were drawn, each one more intricate than the last. The equations looked like something out of a science fiction novel, abstract and unfathomable to most, but familiar to Maya and her team. "I'm glad you could all make it," Dr. Richards began, her tone steady but serious. "We've been facing a significant obstacle in our research. We've reached a point where the existing methods of analysis just aren't cutting it. We need to approach this from a completely new angle." Maya's eyebrows furrowed in concern. Dr. Richards didn't often talk about obstacles this way. If she was worried, it meant something serious was at stake. Alex spoke up, his voice filled with tension. "The problem is that the equations we're dealing with now are too complex for the current models to handle. We've tried tweaking the parameters, but we're hitting a wall. If we don't find a solution soon, the entire project could stall." Tasha added, "We've even considered bringing in outside experts, but this is so specialized, so new, that it's hard to explain to anyone who isn't already deeply involved in the work." Maya felt a chill run down her spine. She had seen the team face challenges before, but this felt different. This wasn't just a small problem that could be solved with a few tweaks. This was a significant barrier, one that could derail everything they had worked on so far. Dr. Richards turned to Maya, her eyes sharp and calculating. "Maya, I want you to take the lead on this. You've got a unique perspective on the problem, and I believe you're the one who can break through this." Maya blinked in surprise. "Me?" she asked, her voice thick with disbelief. "I mean, I'm still learning. You want me to lead this?" Dr. Richards nodded firmly. "You've already proven yourself. You solved a problem that stumped some of the best minds in mathematics. This is just another challenge, one that requires fresh thinking, and that's what you bring to the table." The weight of Dr. Richards' words hit Maya like a ton of bricks. She had always believed in herself, but now she was being asked to carry the responsibility of the entire team. The pressure was immense, but somewhere deep down, she knew she couldn't back down now. "Okay," Maya said, her voice steady despite the storm of thoughts racing through her mind. "I'll do it." "Good," Dr. Richards said, her tone approving. "We'll all be here to support you, but I believe you're the key to cracking this." The next few days were a blur of intense work. Maya dived deep into the equations, scanning the diagrams and attempting to make sense of the complex relationships between the variables. She spent hours scribbling on whiteboards, mapping out the connections between different elements, and trying to find a pattern that would unlock the solution. Her team members offered support and input, but the weight of the task rested squarely on her shoulders. The days grew long, and the nights even longer. Maya's mind felt like it was constantly spinning, as if the solution was just out of reach but never fully attainable. Her room was littered with notebooks, textbooks, and piles of paper filled with scribbled ideas and half-formed hypotheses. Alex and Tasha were always there to help, offering suggestions and encouragement. "You're close, Maya," Alex said one afternoon when she seemed frustrated. "I can feel it. You're on the right track. Just keep going." Tasha, who had been working beside Maya, chimed in, "Take a step back for a minute. You've been at this for hours. Sometimes the solution comes when you're not looking for it." But it wasn't until late one evening, when Maya was ready to call it a night, that something clicked. She was reviewing the calculations one last time, her mind a haze of equations and variables, when she saw it, an inconsistency in one of the matrices they had been working with. It wasn't a huge revelation, but it was enough. It was the missing piece. Maya's breath caught in her throat as she quickly began working through the new approach she had devised. Her hands moved swiftly across the keyboard, entering the revised equations into the computer. The results began to change, slowly at first, then faster, as the model started to stabilize. She had done it. She leaned back in her chair, staring at the screen in disbelief. The new solution was right there, clear as day. She had cracked it. The next morning, Maya arrived at the lab early. She couldn't wait to show the team what she had found. When Alex and Tasha entered, Maya didn't even wait for pleasantries. She rushed to the whiteboard, where she had already written out the new approach. "This is it," Maya said, her voice full of excitement. "I found the missing link. We can move forward now." Dr. Richards, who had been observing from the doorway, walked over with a look of curiosity. Maya explained the new method she had discovered, the connection she had made between the variables that had previously seemed unrelated. As she spoke, Dr. Richards' expression changed from interest to astonishment. "Maya," Dr. Richards said, her voice full of awe, "this is brilliant. You've done it. This breakthrough will change everything. We can finally move forward." The room filled with applause from her teammates. Maya felt a surge of pride and relief. The pressure that had been weighing her down for so long seemed to lift in an instant. She had faced the challenge head-on and come out victorious. As they gathered around to review the results, Maya realized something: this moment wasn't just about solving a mathematical problem. It was about overcoming doubt, trusting herself, and proving that she could rise to the occasion. She had come a long way from the girl who had once hesitated to share her ideas. And now, she was leading her team to a breakthrough that could change the course of their research. Maya's journey wasn't over. In fact, it had only just begun. There were still many challenges ahead, but Maya knew one thing for sure: no matter what came next, she was ready. The breakthrough had come at a crucial time. After Maya had uncovered the missing piece, the team moved quickly to incorporate the new approach into their research. What had once seemed like an insurmountable problem now felt like a distant memory. Maya's discovery had turned the tide, and the project was back on track. But even as the research progressed, Maya couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this journey than just solving complex mathematical problems. The breakthrough had opened up a new world of possibilities for her, one that extended far beyond the walls of the Math Institute and the lab where she had spent countless hours. The realization hit her one late afternoon, when she was sitting in the common room with Tasha and Alex, talking about the next steps in their research. It had been another long day, and the trio was exhausted, but there was an energy in the air, an excitement about what lay ahead. Maya stared at her notes absent-mindedly, her mind wandering. She had come so far, but was this it? Was this the limit of her potential? She didn't think so. She knew there was more out there for her, more questions to answer, more problems to solve. She wasn't just a mathematician, she was a creator, an innovator, someone whose ideas had the power to shape the future of mathematics. "I've been thinking," Maya said suddenly, drawing the attention of her friends. "About what comes next." Tasha leaned forward, a curious expression on her face. "What do you mean?" "Like, the next project?" Maya nodded, but it was more than that. "I mean, where do we go from here? We've accomplished something huge, but I can't help feeling like there's so much more I could do, so much more I want to do. It's not just about solving equations anymore. I want to make a real impact, you know. I want to push boundaries." Alex exchanged a look with Tasha, and then he turned to Maya with a smile. "That's what makes you different, Maya. You're not just looking for answers, you're looking for new questions to ask. You're thinking bigger." Tasha nodded in agreement. "Yeah. You've got the kind of mindset that can change the field. You don't just accept things as they are. You challenge them, push them, make them evolve." Maya smiled, the warmth of her friend's support filling her with gratitude. They understood her better than anyone else. But even as she felt this sense of camaraderie, she knew that the path ahead wouldn't always be easy. There would be more challenges, more setbacks, and more moments of doubt. But Maya had learned something important: the journey wasn't about avoiding obstacles, it was about facing them head-on and finding a way to keep going. Dr. Richards had been quietly listening in the corner of the room, her gaze thoughtful. After a moment, she walked over to join the group, her expression as calm and steady as always. "Maya," she said, her voice warm but firm, "I think it's time you start thinking about what comes next, too. The breakthrough you've led us to is just the beginning. I see a future for you in this field, one that will take you far beyond what we've done here. If you want to push boundaries, you have the potential to do so. But it will require dedication, vision, and courage." Maya felt her heart race at Dr. Richards' words. The idea of taking that next step was both exhilarating and terrifying. It wasn't just about continuing her current research, it was about charting a new course for herself, one that might lead to uncharted territory in the world of mathematics. "I don't know if I'm ready for that kind of responsibility," Maya said quietly, though she knew deep down that the only way to grow was to take risks. "What if I fail?" Dr. Richards smiled, a knowing glint in her eyes. "Failure is part of the process, Maya. Every breakthrough, every major discovery, comes with setbacks. What matters is how you respond to them. Do you learn from them? Do you keep going, even when the road gets tough?" Maya paused, considering her mentor's words. She had faced so many challenges already, so many moments when it seemed like everything would fall apart. And yet, she had kept going. Maybe that was what truly mattered. It wasn't about avoiding failure. It was about pushing through it, learning from it, and using it to fuel the next step forward. "I think I'm ready," Maya said, her voice filled with a newfound sense of purpose. "I want to make a real impact. I want to contribute something that lasts, something that changes the way people think about math." Dr. Richards placed a hand on her shoulder, her expression proud. "I knew you had it in you. Now, let's make sure you're prepared for what comes next." In the weeks that followed, Maya began to map out her next steps. She spent countless hours studying new areas of mathematics, delving into the theories and research that fascinated her most. But this time, she didn't just focus on the equations and the numbers. She started to think more broadly about how her work could connect with other fields, how it could be applied to solve real-world problems. Maya also sought out opportunities to collaborate with experts in other disciplines, expanding her network and broadening her horizons. She knew that the future of mathematics wasn't just about working in isolation, it was about building connections, forming partnerships, and collaborating with others who shared her passion for discovery. At the same time, Maya continued to mentor students at the Math Institute. She knew how much she had gained from the guidance of Dr. Richards and the support of her friends. Now, it was her turn to pass that knowledge on to others. She became a source of inspiration for students who, like her, had once felt like outsiders in the world of math. Maya showed them that it was possible to achieve greatness, no matter where they came from or what obstacles they faced. As Maya's research began to evolve, so did her reputation in the mathematical community. Her work was no longer just about solving one problem, it was about creating new paradigms, new ways of thinking about old problems. Her name started to gain recognition outside of the Math Institute, and soon, she was invited to give talks at universities and conferences across the country. But no matter how far her work took her, Maya never forgot where she came from. She still remembered the girl who had once doubted her own potential, who had struggled to find her place in the world. That girl had grown into someone capable of changing the world of mathematics, and beyond. And as Maya looked toward the future, she knew one thing for sure, the journey was far from over. There were more problems to solve, more questions to ask, and more boundaries to push. But now, she was ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. Because Maya had learned that the key to success wasn't just about the destination, it was about the journey, the growth, and the courage to keep going, no matter what. The world was waiting for her next move. And Maya Carter was ready to make it. Maya sat on the edge of her bed, staring out the window as the evening sun dipped below the horizon. The city skyline stretched out before her, the lights of the buildings flickering like stars against the darkening sky. It had been a long year, filled with both triumphs and setbacks, but as she looked at the world before her, she couldn't help but feel an overwhelming sense of possibility. She had come so far. From the girl who solved a problem that had stumped university professors to the leader of a groundbreaking research project, Maya had already achieved more than she had ever imagined. But it wasn't just about the recognition or the accolades. It was about the journey, about the countless hours spent in the lab, the breakthroughs and frustrations, the doubts and the triumphs. It was about what she had learned along the way, and how that knowledge had shaped the person she had become. Maya smiled to herself, thinking about how different she had felt just a few years ago, standing before a room full of experts, unsure of herself and her place in the world. She had come a long way from that moment, but even now, there were still so many questions to explore, so many mysteries to uncover. The world of mathematics, with its infinite depth and complexity, had a way of constantly reminding her that there was always more to learn. And that was what kept her going. The pursuit of knowledge, the desire to solve problems that no one else could, the drive to make a difference. Maya had learned that it wasn't just about being the smartest person in the room, it was about being willing to take risks, to challenge assumptions, and to approach problems from a fresh perspective. Her phone buzzed, pulling her out of her thoughts. It was a message from Dr. Richards. "Maya, I'm proud of everything you've accomplished this year. But remember, this is just the beginning. The future is yours. Keep pushing boundaries. Maya read the message twice, a warm feeling spreading through her chest. Dr. Richards had always been there for her, guiding her when she needed it, pushing her when she doubted herself. She owed so much of her growth to her mentor, and now, Maya was ready to take on the world in her own way. Her mind wandered back to the conference she had attended earlier in the year, the one where she had stood in front of a room full of professors, the ones who had once doubted her. That moment felt like a lifetime ago, but she could still remember the thrill of sharing her discovery, the shock on their faces when they realized she had solved a problem they hadn't been able to crack. She had always known that math was her passion, but that day had solidified her place in the world. She was no longer just a curious student, she was a force to be reckoned with. And the world was starting to take notice. But now, as she sat quietly in her room, she couldn't help but think about the bigger picture. What would her legacy be? What kind of impact did she want to have on the world, not just in mathematics, but in the lives of others? Maya's thoughts drifted to the students she had mentored at the Math Institute. She had learned so much from them, too, about resilience, about community, about the importance of sharing knowledge. The future of mathematics wasn't just in the hands of those at the top, it was in the hands of the next generation, the ones who were still discovering their potential. Maya realized that one of the most important things she could do was inspire others to reach their full potential, just as she had been inspired by those who believed in her. She thought about the young girls, especially young black girls, who might one day look at her and see a role model. Maya had been that girl once, unsure of her abilities, questioning whether the world of academia and math had a place for someone like her. If she could show those girls that their dreams were possible, that their voices mattered, that their ideas could change the world, then that would be the greatest accomplishment of all. With a deep breath, Maya stood up from her bed, feeling a renewed sense of determination. She knew what she had to do. It wasn't just about continuing her research, it was about leaving a legacy that would inspire others to chase their own dreams, no matter how impossible they seemed. Maya walked over to her desk, opened her laptop, and began drafting a letter. It was the beginning of a new chapter, one that would combine her passion for mathematics with her desire to make a difference in the world. She wrote about her vision for the future of math, about how the field could be made more accessible to people from all walks of life, about how diversity and inclusion were essential to the progress of science and innovation. She would use her platform, her success, to make sure that young people, especially those from underrepresented communities, knew that math wasn't just for the privileged few. It was for everyone. Anyone with the curiosity and the drive to learn could find their place in the world of mathematics. As she finished the letter, Maya's heart swelled with pride. This was her new mission, her new purpose. She would continue to break down barriers in math, but she would also open doors for others to follow in her footsteps. The world was waiting, and Maya was ready to meet it head-on. Over the next several years, Maya's career skyrocketed. She became a renowned mathematician, known not just for her groundbreaking research but also for her advocacy work, encouraging diversity and inclusion in STEM fields. She spoke at schools, at conferences, and on panels, always emphasizing the importance of representation in mathematics. She mentored countless students, helping them realize their own potential, just as Dr. Richards had done for her. Maya never forgot where she had come from. Every achievement, every accolade, every new discovery was dedicated to the girl who had once sat in the back of a classroom, unsure of her worth. Now, she stood at the front of the room, showing the world that anything was possible. And so, Maya Carter's legacy lived on, not just in the equations she solved, but in the lives she touched, in the doors she opened, and in the hearts she inspired. She had proven that no matter where you came from, no matter how impossible it seemed, you had the power to change the world. And her story was just the beginning. The world of mathematics was vast, and Maya was just getting started. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough?